So mixed bag for Wednesday. Still some showers around, and this time the focus for showers will be across Scotland, Northern England, West Wales. A few showers into the south, but not as many as Tuesday. And in between, well, certainly through the Midlands, Eastern England, decent sunny spells, 8 to 11 Celsius. The breeze picks up in the west, and it turns cloudy in Northern Ireland as we end the day, ahead of this band of rain, which will push some wet weather into Northern Ireland through the evening, and then that reaches western fringes of Britain during the night. But it clears first thing Thursday to a showery setup for Friday and the weekend.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's the big one. Your chance to win a whopping £85,000 in tax-free cash. The largest cash prize we've given away to date. That's like over £7,000 a month extra in your bank account each month for 12 whole months. That's a year of yes. Yes to holidays, yes to treats, yes to shopping trips, yes to home improvements. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Flossie, how do you think your peers would react if, from now on, they were never, ever allowed to bring their phone into school?
Well, I think the big thing is really, I mean, I went to school yesterday after obviously doing BBC News. And surprisingly to me, all of my friends were saying, look, we completely agree with you. You're so totally doing the right thing. Obviously, it is a very sensitive topic. You know, obviously, I'm going to have people saying, stop what you're doing.
Don't take my phone away from me.
I would hate myself if I was in primary, secondary school. But realistically, the thing is, now I'm coming to realise I really wish I just didn't have a phone.
Yeah.
I am addicted to my phone now, I will admit that. I really wish I wasn't. So hopefully as well, if phones are banned in secondary schools, parents usually buy them for secondary school because everyone gets them. So hopefully that will stagger, you know, when parents buy their kids' phones, which may break, you know, the level of addiction.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if I didn't have a phone, I really wish I didn't, because, you know, I keep on saying to myself, where would I be now if I didn't have a phone?
You said that people are now talking to each other on the bus because your school has moved to a stricter ban.
So my school is now completely smartphone free on anywhere where the school has a duty of care. So, yeah, it was really surprising to see kids, you know, talking and chatting rather than
because normally they would
being on
text
their
each other
phones.
or they'd be on
Just staring at their phone.
Extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, I do hope you're very successful because it's such an important campaign. Will or Ewing and Flossie, thank you so much. Yeah.
Why can't they just take a stand? They've done it in Australia.
It might help with the
They've done it in Australia.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask different questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British Airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a corker of a show today, and here's what's on it. David Lammy has been today nicknamed Lammy Dodger after the Deputy PM performed a blatant U-turn on jury trials. Back in 2020, Mr Lammy claimed criminal trials without juries are a bad idea. Well, today, the Justice Secretary banned jury trials for all but the most serious of trials. I'll be joined in Westminster by the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick.
But now he's become Justice Secretary, he's scrapping the very institution he once lauded. Which is it? Will the real David Lammy please stand up?
And Lord Hermer has been accused of a politically motivated attack on Nigel Farage. Keir Starmer's Attorney General has demanded the Reform UK leader apologise for comments he allegedly made 50 years ago. Comments Mr Farage has repeatedly denied ever making. With David Lammy also wading in, is this a desperate attempt once again to keep Nigel Farage out of number 10? And breaking news, furious Hillsborough families condemn a £150 million investigation as a waste of money, as it ends without a single police officer being convicted over the historic disaster. And a sold-out Reform UK Christmas event has been cancelled after Stand Up to Racism bullied the venue into submission. I'll be joined by Richard Tice on today's show, who claims this is a gross attack on free speech and we must fight back. And the Labour Rand Council is plotting to remove 700 St George's and Union flags from Rushmore Borough, and that is the home to the British Army and Aldershot. The flags were erected by local patriots and army veterans, but the council claim they cause distress and are political. I'll be joined by a furious patriot, a local resident who helped put up those flags. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Well, first they called him Calamity Lammy. Now it's Lammy Dodger. The nicknames keep rolling off the tongue, just as they did with Sir Keir Starmer. David Lammy doing what appears to be a blatant U-turn on jury trials. 5 years ago, couldn't get enough of this stuff. Today, wants them all gone, except for the most serious of cases. He says it's all about clearing the backlog, but actually, is it just another show of a blatant U-turn from the Labour Party? And meanwhile, Lord Hermer, yes, that guy. Remember the guy who compared right-wingers to 1930s Germany? Well, today, he's blatantly steaming into Nigel Farage, demanding he apologise for comments 50 years ago that Nigel Farage demands never said, never even happened. Why is it the Attorney General, Sir Keir Starmer's man, is suddenly wading into a debate? Is it all a joined-up part of the establishment to try and keep Nigel Farage out of number 10? Get in touch, gbnews.com/you'll say is the way to do so. I'll be joined in the studio in a short moment's time by Robert Jenrick. But before that, here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The Justice Secretary has confirmed a major overhaul of jury trials, saying some cases carrying sentences of 3 years or less will now be decided by a judge alone and not a jury. David Lammy says the changes, along with expanding magistrate sentencing powers to 18 months, will speed up cases and help tackle the record Crown Court backlog. But the Conservatives are attacking the plan. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick saying scrapping jury trials is dangerous.
If the Justice Secretary gets away with this, it's the beginning of the end of jury trials. He's already in retreat. Let's unite to send him packing.
David Lammy pushed back, insisting juries remain fundamental, but says too many defendants are playing the system and that victims deserve faster justice.
In his tirade, he never once mentioned victims. Not once. Not once in his clip did he talk about the people waiting in that backlog.
The Justice Secretary has revealed that 12 prisoners have been mistakenly released from jail in the past month and 2 are still on the run. David Lammy says the pair are at large, but they're not violent or sexual offenders, but won't give further details while police prepare arrests. It comes after a series of blunders across the prison estate, including the wrongful release of convicted sex offender Brahim Kadour Sharif and the case of Hadoush Kabatu, whose mistaken release sparked protests in Essex. Mr Lammy says stronger security checks are now now in place, calling the early signs a downward trend, but admits there remains, in his words, a mountain to climb to fix the system. A long-awaited report says 12 ex-police officers would have faced gross misconduct charges over the Hillsborough disaster, but none can be disciplined because they'd already retired back in 2012. The police watchdog found fundamental failures on the day and concerted efforts to blame fans, leaving families with what lawyers call another bitter injustice. A stark warning today from the OECD, which says tax rises and spending cuts will drag on the UK economy for the next 2 years, slowing growth and keeping inflation among the highest in the G7. The report says fiscal tightening is acting as a headwind, with household incomes squeezed and consumption weakening. Growth is now expected to fall 1.2% next year and inflation to stay stubbornly high through 2026. It comes as pressure mounts on the Chancellor after last week's £26 billion tax-raising budget, though she insists her choices will help bring prices down and stabilise the economy. A British man has been detained in Ukraine on suspicion of spying for Russia, according to Ukraine's security service. Investigators say the suspect, a former member of the UK armed forces who travelled to Ukraine last year to train soldiers, was later recruited by Russia's FSB, allegedly tempted by easy money. He's accused of passing Ukrainian military coordinates to Moscow and even preparing terrorist attacks, including receiving instructions to build an IED. He was arrested in October and is now being held on suspicion of passing unauthorised information to Russia, charges that could carry up to 12 years in prison if convicted. And new immigration laws set to receive royal assent this week will hand immigration enforcement officers unprecedented powers to target people smuggling gangs. For the first time, officers will be able to order illegal migrants to remove coats, jackets or gloves at UK ports, to search for phones and even inspect inside someone's mouth for hidden SIM cards or micro devices. The Home Office says the aim is to seize crucial early-stage intelligence, including messages between smugglers and migrants, to help disrupt the criminal networks driving channel crossings. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, today, David Lammy has announced major reforms to the justice system, which will see juries scrapped for crimes that carry a likely sentence of less than 3 years. Now, the Justice Secretary made the announcement in the Commons earlier on today.
First, I will create new swift courts within the Crown Court, with a judge alone deciding verdicts in triable either-way cases with a likely sentence of 3 years or less, as Sir Brian recommends. Sir Brian estimates that they will deliver justice at least 20% faster than jury trials.
Well, the Justice Secretary, Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick, he steamed in. He was quick to criticise the hypocrisy of Mr Lammy's reforms.
He found juries, and I quote, act as a filter for prejudice. But now he's become Justice Secretary, he's scrapping the very institution he once lauded. Which is it? Will the real David Lammy please stand up?
But with 12 prisoners having been accidentally released in the past 3 weeks alone, will this move actually stamp out the chaos in our criminal justice system? Well, I'm delighted to be joined in the studio by our political editor, Chris Verhoeven, and also by the man of the moment, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. If I may, I'll start with you, Mr Jenrick, wasting no time there, having a good old dig at David Lammy. But let's focus on something which appears to be a major positional U-turn. 5 years ago, David Lammy couldn't get enough of jury trials. Suddenly, he's against the things. What's changed?
Well, he's become Justice Secretary, hasn't he? But you're right to say 5 years ago, the old David Lammy said that jury trials were fundamental to our justice system, fundamental to our democracy. And he wasn't alone back then. In fact, the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, has said in the past that every criminal trial should have the opportunity to be heard by a jury. And they were both correct. This is part of our rights. This goes back at least to Magna Carta. It's an important safety valve against an occasionally overbearing state. And now the government decides to cast it aside and scrap it. We all appreciate that there is a backlog in the courts. It's completely shameful that a serious case might not be heard for 4 or 5 years. But you don't resolve that administrative failure by the system by scrapping something that is at the absolute heart of our criminal justice system.
Are you concerned, the Free Speech Union are very concerned that the propensity to be found guilty is twice as likely for free speech offences, as opposed, if you have a judge as opposed to a jury? Cases like Lucy Connolly will be much more likely to see the inside of a prison cell if they go to Crown Court. Are you concerned about the impacts on free speech cases?
I am. At the heart of a jury trial is the fact that 12 ordinary citizens come together, they pool their collective experience of the world, and they apply their common sense. And sometimes that means that they have the opportunity to acquit somebody for something that might be reprehensible, might be wrong, none of us would condone, but which doesn't mean that someone should be in jail. And the Lucy Connolly example is right. Lucy Connolly pleaded guilty. Had she, however, gone before a jury, one can only question whether she would actually have been found guilty and ultimately imprisoned for 31 months. I suspect not.
Chris?
You were saying in the House of Commons there, Robert Jenrick, that and rightly, David Lammy did say that he wants to keep the jury trials going, but that was back before the pandemic, when now there's 80,000 cases delayed to 100,000 by 2028. Surely he has to do some dramatic action to bring that down. But the worry for civil liberties groups is it's not sunsetted, so we are literally ripping up Article 9 of Magna Carta forever, and that's been going since 2012-15. Should that be changed, maybe in the House of Commons or more likely in the Lords?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, if this was motivated purely by a desire to fix this immediate challenge that the criminal justice system faces, then why not sunset this? Why not do it for a couple of years and then return to the tried and tested historic situation? I suspect there's something deeper behind this, which is the fact that some in the Labour Party, not the old left that you saw in the House of Commons today, like Diane Abbott, but the kind of Blairite tradition, just don't trust ordinary people. They think that educated judges know best, that the rule of law means ruled by lawyers. And in fact, you might remember Tony Blair and Jack Straw tried to do exactly the same back in the day. They were thwarted by opposition on all sides of the House of Commons and the House of Lords. I believe we can do so again this time and preserve this, hand it on to our children and grandchildren.
A lot of our viewers are concerned, to be frank, they don't trust the judiciary, or at least they think the judiciary have a political mindset which is rather narrow, rather liberal, perhaps not reflective of the broader population. And isn't that the point of a jury? A jury is a balanced, broader spectrum, more likely to take in different walks of life, the working classes. Dare I say, if you're of a conservative bent, how many conservative judges are there? Are you concerned if it's just down to the judge themselves, their own politics might weigh on their decisions?
Well, I do trust ordinary people to come together, take this duty very seriously, weigh up the evidence and come to a commonsensical view. That's why this has survived for all these hundreds of years, because it commands public support. It's one of the very few opportunities that people have to be involved in the criminal justice system. It's a civic duty. It's something that enables people to understand how the system works and to talk to their friends and family members about it. It forces barristers in court to distill complex issues into simple, day-to-day parlance in order to ensure that the victim, the defendant, the public actually understand the issues at the heart of the matter. And this is something, in fact, that David Lammy himself used to say. He did a review for the last government, the Lammy Review, in which he concluded that jury trials were less biased than judges. When you had people, for example, from an ethnic minority background going before a court, they were more likely to be treated fairly by a jury than by somebody from the judiciary, perhaps because of their background, who knows precisely. So most of the evidence shows that juries are good at coming to fair and reasonable conclusions, and that's why we should keep them.
Well, what would you do if you empower? You mentioned 50 Crown courtrooms sitting empty in the Commons, 21,000 court days unused last year, is that right? Or 20? It's a big number.
That's right.
Was that enough to pick up the slack, or would you be doing something dramatic, maybe sunsetting what David Lammy is offering with juries?
Well, if all of the courtrooms in our country were fully occupied over the course of the last year, the court backlog would have gone down by up to 10,000 cases. In fact, it shot up by 10% over the course of the year. So, step one, get the court sitting round the clock. That hasn't happened recently. In fact, the Lady Chief Justice, the most senior person in our judiciary, came to Parliament last week and offered the government more sitting days. But the government haven't accepted them on financial grounds. And that sticks in the throat for me, because how was Rachel Reeves able to come to Parliament yesterday or last week and say she's going to increase taxes, spend £16 billion more on benefits, spend £4 or £5 billion a year on asylum seekers, getting the backlog down there, housing and feeding them, and yet the government couldn't find a comparatively small amount of money to get the court sitting, fix this problem, ensure that we can have swift justice?
Robert Jenrick, may I get your opinion on another story which we're covering today, and that is Lord Hermer. Of course, this is Keir Starmer's Attorney General, has waded into the debate around Nigel Farage, alleged comments he made 50 years ago. Lord Hermer is demanding that Nigel Farage apologises. This hasn't even been proven to have happened. If there was any proof of it, presumably we'd have seen it by now. Why is the Attorney General, Sir Keir Starmer's man, getting involved? Does this, to you, feel like a politically motivated attack?
Well, no, I never condone any comments which were anti-Semitic, whether they were made today or 50 years ago. But Lord Hermer is the one that should be apologising for the things that he's done over the course of his life. Look at the clients that he's taken on: Shamima Begum, Jerry Adams, 9/11 and 7/7 terrorists. He always seems to be on the side of people who hate our country. And maybe he's siding with other members of the government to attack those on the right and try and shut down people who want to oppose the Labour government right now.
David Lammy has also waded in on the same debate on the same morning. Call me a cynic. It feels like a joined-up campaign on Times Radio, demanding that Nigel Farage do the right thing and apologise. Why are they all joining up like this to have a go at Nigel Farage? I put it to you again, is this a joined-up, politically motivated campaign to try and keep Nigel Farage out of power?
Well, look, I don't know what their motives are, but it sounds like a distraction tactic from what's really going on in the country right now.
Robert, you're a straight-talking man. I ask you a straight-talking question. Is this a joined-up campaign?
Well, they obviously don't like Nigel Farage, do they? That's very clear. But what they should be doing is answering questions on a disastrous budget, Rachel Reeves' refusal to resign for flagrantly misleading the public, and today, this attempt to U-turn, get rid of an ancient liberty that we've known in our country for 800 years of jury trials, which isn't even going to fix the problem, which is the court backlog. David Lammy, before Parliament today, ended his remarks by saying that even if he does all of these destructive reforms, he can only promise that he might get the backlog down by the end of this Parliament. So it's another failed Calamity Lammy experiment.
It's extraordinary how limited the scale of what they're doing and the lack of, by his own admission. I've got to ask you on another reform issue. Leah Nitchie, Chris Green, Jonathan Gullis are all off to Reform UK, making it, I think, 18 have jumped the ship, former colleagues of yours. Are you sad about this? Do you blame your current leader for them leaving? Why are they not standing again in the next election for your party?
Well, they're friends of mine. I am sad that they've chosen to leave the Conservative Party. They were good members of Parliament, and I hope they continue to serve in some capacity in public life. The Conservative Party's got to change and prove to the public that it can have their trust and confidence once again. I want the Conservative Party to be the natural home for every small C Conservative.
So why are they leaving?
It's
a judgment on Kevin Badenoch, who's doing pretty well at PMQs. We think in our world doing pretty well performing at the dispatch box. But look at this. The former deputy chairman leaving and joining Reform UK.
Well, you'd have to ask them, Chris. I don't have a window into their souls, but I want to ensure, as does Kemi, that the Conservative Party is the home for everyone who shares our beliefs in a small state, strong borders, lower taxes, a true Conservative agenda for this country.
Do you think down the line there could be the most tactical deployment, some kind of allegiance between the Conservatives and Reform? There's a hell of a lot of talk about tactical voting to keep the Conservatives, keep Reform out from the political left. Should that be something that the Conservatives think about doing with Reform?
Well, Kemi and Nigel have both, in their different ways, been very clear that there's no pact or deal to be done. These are two different political parties, actually very distinct parties, and it's not in the interest of either to get into that kind of debate.
What if you were the leader of the Conservative Party?
Well, I'm not the leader of the Conservative Party, am I? That's ancient history. Kemi's our leader right now, and she's doing a good job, as Chris rightly said. She absolutely skewered Rachel Reeves last week.
Robert Jenrick, like a true politician. Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio today.
Good to see you.
Absolute pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much. Now let's get an alternative take now. Speak with the former Labour advisor, Stella Santakidou. Always a pleasure, Stella. My favourite Greek patriot, who, of course, flies proudly a St George's flag. I love you even more for that admission on your behalf. Let's get back to the jury trials. David Lammy's sudden U-turn to drop them. Is he making a mistake?
No, he's not making a mistake. And I found it very interesting to listen to your interview with Robert Jenrick, because I wonder what is his opinion about, what is his rather opinion about what happened, why do we have the backlog that we have and that we need to take such drastic measures, right? Obviously, we have 80,000 people on the backlog right now. That is going to become 100,000 by 2028. There are people whose cases will not be heard until 2029. 10% of adult rape victims are dropping out of their cases before these are held. But then you look at what has actually happened to our court and justice system. Our Justice Department has had a 25% cut on its budget from 2010 to 2022. At the same time, you had a 43% reduction on the legal aid, or the amount of money we are spending on legal aid. Over half of magistrates have been closed across the country from 2010 until 2020. A third of county courts have been closed and 8 crown courts have closed down as well. Is it any wonder that we have the backlog that we do have? And obviously what this requires is more investment. But right now, we are seeing that we have people whose justice delayed means justice denied. And these people are going to just continue being frustrated. So I think that some direct action was needed. And it's not just that they are reducing the amount of cases that will be heard by juries and moving more of them to the magistrates. There are still, the most serious cases will still be heard by a jury trial, but they are also investing more in how much we are spending in courts and in legal aid.
OK, Stella, may I also get your take on that second story there, and that is Lord Hermer putting the boot into Nigel Farage, coincidentally, on the same morning David Lammy did. Do you think we're facing the most ugly general election perhaps in political history? The political left seems to be trying everything they can to stop any prospect whatsoever of Nigel Farage getting anywhere near number 10.
I think given the seriousness of the comments that multiple reputable witnesses have said that Nigel Farage was making, I do not think that it is unfair for political figures to make comments about them. I'm pretty sure that Nigel Farage would be doing exactly the same thing were similar comments found to be aired by someone like Jeremy Corbyn, for example.
Do you not believe that it's a sign of total and utter desperation that comments from 50 years ago are being dredged up? They can't be corroborated, they can't be proved. If there was any documentary evidence, presumably would have seen that by now. It's just starting to feel like, some might say, a desperate attempt to sort of play the player and not play the ball.
No, I think it is perfectly fair for the people who felt that this was a time for them to come out and say them. And I think the reason is, I'm not suggesting for a second that I believe Nigel Farage is far right. I do not believe that Nigel Farage is far right. But I do think that given the kind of political leanings that he has, it is perfectly fair for someone to say, hey, you know what, I actually think it's very suspicious that he used to say things like that when he was a teenager, which caused real harm and hurt, and he should apologize if that was the case. And then we are looking at his political trajectory and the kind of people who seem to be most attracted to them. And I think this is one of the points why this is important. There will be people who have racist beliefs who will be attracted to Nigel Farage's project. And I think it is important
same with Jeremy Corbyn. It's the same. I mean, you know, if you think about it from the political left, no, Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party was actually investigated for racism. Your party is starting. My point is, this just some people are saying it's just an ancient piece of archaeological digging to try and smear the man. Stella, we have to leave it there. I appreciate your time, as ever. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you very much. And thanks again to Robert Jenrick for coming in. Chris Hope, absolute legend, as ever. Even though you did turn your speaker on during the interview, you know, got very sensitive ears, Chris. Thank you very much indeed. Now, moving on, friends of GB News can today vote in our You Decide poll by scanning the QR code now on your screen. Today, we're asking the big question. And we are asking, do you have any confidence in our justice system? So far, look at this, a resounding 2% of you say yes, they have got faith. 98% say absolutely no faith whatsoever in our justice system. We do like a really balanced poll here on GB News. Now, still to come, a long-awaited report has found 12 ex-police officers would have faced gross misconduct cases over the Hillsborough disaster. We'll bring all the very latest analysis, and that's next here on GB News, and we're Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Well, debate time is 3:27. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, an investigation into the Hillsborough disaster by the Independent Office for Police Conduct has found that 12 police officers would have faced gross misconduct proceedings. We can now speak with our national reporter, Will Godley. Will, welcome to the show. The families are rightly furious. They feel justice has been denied them. Tell us more.
Yeah, certainly upset this afternoon, reacting at a press conference, also asking the question why it's taken 36 years to get these answers from the IOPC. Of course, this incident took place 36 years ago at the Hillsborough Stadium, and they've been waiting some 13 years for this report to be released. It was commissioned back in 2012, and now today we're getting those answers, which is that 12 police officers, had they still been serving today, would have faced gross misconduct proceedings for what the report states is deep complacency at South Yorkshire Police, fundamental failures in the policing at Hillsborough on that fateful day, and also after the incident, concerted efforts to blame fans in the aftermath. Of course, that is what the police did in Hillsborough, blamed the Liverpool fans for this crush to take place, rather than coming clean that this perhaps was down to the police's handling of what took place there. And the families reacting after this report was published at a press conference in Liverpool, understandably very angry that this blame was placed on their loved ones. Earlier on, someone at this press conference, one of the bereaved family members, a lady called Charlotte Hennessy, whose father died in Hillsborough, spoke earlier on. Take a listen.
I truly know the full extent of South Yorkshire Police Force's deception, but there is no hiding. There is no destroying, and there is no way to cover up that they failed their duties and then they sought to blame the victims.
So, lots of anger coming from the bereaved families this afternoon at news that 12 police officers would have faced gross misconduct proceedings. And those police officers were right at the top of South Yorkshire Police, including the then Chief Constable, Peter Wright, who the report said attempted to promote a false narrative and shift blame away from his police force onto Liverpool fans. A second person named in the report is David Duckenfield, who was the police officer in charge of the policing operation in Hillsborough 36 years ago. And the report said that he would face 10 gross misconduct allegations because of his freezing in crisis. And the bereaved families reacting this afternoon said he is a liar. When he saw Liverpool fans dying on the field, his first thought was to blame them and protect himself. They went on to say they do not accept his apology. Well, a third person, Martin, was also named in this report, Sir Norman Bettison, who this report said was deliberately dishonest in the handling of the Hillsborough disaster. Well, the bereaved families and other MPs this afternoon reacting to this report, calling for him to be stripped of his knighthood as their anger continues to permeate.
Thank you, Will Godley. A comprehensive summary there of the never-ending seeking of justice for the Hillsborough families. Thank you, Will Godley. Now, a change of gear now. It's time for a brand new British giveaway and your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours all in time for the new year. How stonking would that be? It's like having £7 grand extra in your bank account each and every month for the whole of 2026. Of course, I want that, but I can't even enter. It's over to you. You really could be our biggest cash winner. Here's all the details you need to enter.
It's the greatest cash prize of the Great British Giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
There's lots more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including new figures, shock figures out today, show that nearly 1 in 3 children in Glasgow don't speak English as their first language as Glasgow becomes Britain's asylum capital. Stay tuned for more details, but first, here's your latest news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. And good afternoon. The top stories. The Justice Secretary has confirmed a major overhaul of jury trials, saying some cases carrying sentences of 3 years or less will now be decided by a judge alone and not a jury. The Justice Secretary, meanwhile, has revealed that a dozen prisoners have been mistakenly released from jail in the past month and 2 are still on the run. David Lammy says the pair at large are not violent or sexual offenders, but won't give further details while police prepare arrests. A long-awaited report says 12 ex-police officers would have faced gross misconduct charges over the Hillsborough disaster, but none can be disciplined because they'd already retired back in 2012. The police watchdog found fundamental failures on the day. And a stark warning today from the OECD, which says tax rises and spending cuts will drag on the UK economy for the next 2 years, slowing growth and keeping inflation among the highest in the G7. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've seen scattered showers across the south and the west today, and they'll make a little bit further northeastern progress over the next few hours, interspersed by clear spells, and it remains breezy with low pressure sitting to the northwest of the country and this southwesterly airflow. That's what's pushing the showers from the south into the Midlands, parts of eastern England, as well as much of northern England and Scotland through the evening. After around midnight, I think the showers will once again become restricted to southern and western coasts. Clear spells developing inland, still some patchy cloud, but where we do get those clear spells, temperatures will fall away. It won't be freezing first thing. Temperatures typically around 3 to 5 Celsius, but in one or two sheltered spots across eastern Scotland and northeast England, we will see a touch of frost and some mist and fog patches around first thing across the Midlands, southeast England, for example. Still some showers along the south coast, but more especially into Wales, western parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and western and northwest Scotland. In fact, some more persistent rain, I suspect, through northwest Scotland during the morning. A stark contrast to the sunny skies that we'll see across eastern Scotland and elsewhere through central and eastern England. So a mixed bag for Wednesday. Still some showers around, and this time the focus for showers will be across Scotland, northern England, West Wales. A few showers into the south, but not as many as Tuesday. And in between, well, certainly through the Midlands, eastern England, decent sunny spells, 8 to 11 Celsius. The breeze picks up in the west, and it turns cloudy in Northern Ireland as we end the day, ahead of this band of rain, which will push some wet weather into Northern Ireland through the evening, and then that reaches western fringes of Britain during the night. But it clears first thing Thursday to a showery setup for Friday and the weekend.
Thank you, Britain, for making us the fastest growing news website in the nation, because the truth matters, and so do you.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. Road users should exercise caution on the A87 Skye Bridge due to high winds. Congestion affects the A4232 northbound from the A48 interchange to junction 33 at Capel Lanilturn. In Staffordshire, expect a 10-minute delay on the A38 northbound from the A5121 to the A5132. The M2 eastbound exit slip at junction 7 in Kent is closed due to a collision lasting until between 4:15 and 4:30 this afternoon. And on the trains, Greater Anglia reports major disruptions between Tottenham Hale and Cheshunt. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 3:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel. Now, new data collected by the Scottish Government today has shown that nearly 1 in 3 children in Glasgow do not speak English as their first language. Now, Glasgow currently accommodates more asylum seekers than any other local authority in the United Kingdom, subsequently earning its name as Britain's asylum capital. Well, let's now speak with the political commentator and the former SNP member, Stuart Crawford. Stuart, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, always a pleasure to have your company. It sincerely is. We have a situation in Scotland where 28.8% of pupils in Glasgow speak English as a second language. That's the highest anywhere in Scotland, and it's increased by 1/3, incredibly, since 2019. Is this anything to be concerned about?
Good afternoon again, Martin. Well, I speak as a native Glaswegian, having been born and brought up and educated in that great city. And I don't get there very much now because I live on the other side of the country. But the last time I was in Glasgow visiting about 12 months ago, I did notice that the demographic had changed quite dramatically. Now, Glasgow's always been welcoming to migrants from all over the place. We have large ex-Italian populations, Polish populations, Indian and Pakistani organizations, and so on and so forth. But the increase in migrants is very much due to the SNP administration, which is led by Councillor Susan Aitken, basically opening the doors and taking as many migrants as they can. And that's why it's changed. And I think the problem is not so much accepting migrants into the city. It's actually integrating them, and we don't want to set up large ghettos of migrant communities, which we find elsewhere in the UK.
Now, Stuart Crawford, this situation has also been exacerbated. So out of 71,957 students in Glasgow's schools, 20,717 spoke English as an additional language. And it's worth pointing out, oftentimes, they're the children of adult asylum seekers who come to Glasgow. And here's something that's fascinating I learned today, and that is that refugees are thought to be drawn to the city by Scottish rules requiring councils to house all unintentionally homeless people, including single men, not just those in priority need. So Scotland is attracting refugees from all over the place, from Belfast, Birmingham, London, Manchester, Liverpool. They're queuing up to get into the city because it has very generous housing facilities. And as a consequence, Stuart Crawford, there's a crippling housing shortage for the locals.
Yes, that's you're absolutely correct. It's seen, I mean, I think the phrase soft touch is not entirely appropriate. But when you have housing provision which includes single males provided with council houses, it does exacerbate the city's considerable housing problem already. And at some point, someone has got to take stock of how long or how much longer this situation can go on. Otherwise, Glasgow is in danger of not being a Scottish city, but a city that just happens to be in Scotland. And of course, the same could be said by many towns and cities across England.
Do you know, it's an astonishing fact, and I never knew this until today. There are 3 times more asylum seekers in Glasgow than there even are in London. That's an incredible change. Let's not forget, you know, until very, very recently, Scotland was, like 98% white. So it's a big change in a short period of time in a concentrated area. And Stuart, I'm fascinated that you're a former SNP member, and yet you are quite critical there of the SNP and its stance on being very refugees welcome, very open door to literally the world. Do you think the SNP are out of touch with the Scottish electorate on this one?
Well, yes, I do. I mean, I was a member of the SNP, as you know. It was a very long time ago. As W.B. Yeats would have said, I was young and foolish. And I'm no longer a member of that party. But I think that the rapid influx of migrants into the city, as you say, it is the UK's migrant city now, is ideologically driven by the SNP administration. And it will continue until either the SNP administration falls or until some checks and balances are introduced when they realise that it cannot continue increasing at this rate forever.
And yet at the moment, the SNP are on track to make record gains from the Labour Party at the next election. They're going to be, if the current polls are anything to stand by, in power for some time. But is it causing dissatisfaction among Scottish people? I mean, north of the border, for example, they like to see themselves as a nation of very welcoming to immigrants from all over the world. But is this starting to test the kind of patience of people, particularly in places like Glasgow? We've spoken to people on the show who are saying they don't remember ever voting for this.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it is beginning to test the patience of people who live in Glasgow, Glaswegians. Not that they're unwelcoming, but just that they think it's gone perhaps too far and too quickly. You mentioned the Scottish parliamentary elections next year, May 2026. The next Scottish local elections, in which the councillors for Glasgow, of course, will be up for re-election, is the year after that, in 2027. So it may be that they will pay the penalty, given the dissatisfaction that is beginning to grow amongst native Glaswegians.
And do you think you might see a kind of city-based political movement? Because, you know, people, like I say, this is a very, very localised phenomenon. You know, Glasgow will be very, very atypical for the rest of Scotland. And that could breed its own political microclimate where people start saying, I've had enough of this, and they'll vote for someone new, perhaps even reform.
Oh, well, that's a very good point. I think that the rise of reform in Scotland in general terms has been underestimated so far. And of course, the polls are only polls. And there is a groundswell of support for Nigel Farage and his party north of the border, much as other people would seek to deny it. I wouldn't put out of the question a local party, certainly standing in the local authority elections in Glasgow, which mitigates against this sort of almost out of control migration into the city. So 18 months is a long time in politics. We'll just have to wait and see.
Stuart Crawford, fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for joining us today on the show. I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go. So now moving on, this Christmas we're putting on an extraordinarily exciting event, and we want lots of you to be there too, because on Saturday the 13th of December you're invited to join the GB News family for our Carols by Candlelight concert. That's for your chance to be with us on that special festive day. You can apply for tickets by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. You can see it there in the bottom right of your screen. If you can't do that, like me, if you're a bit of a technophobe, simply go to gbnews.com/carols. And the concert will be broadcast on Christmas Eve on GB News. It's going to be simply stupendous, so please get involved. Now, still to come, breaking news. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is set to miss out on £500,000 worth of compensation in a new hammer blow for the former beleaguered royal. But first, here's the forecast of some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're planning on escaping the rain this week, well, unfortunately, there's still some rain affecting the parts of the Mediterranean. High pressure, though, in the Canaries, bringing plenty of dry weather to Madeira, 17 degrees here. Plenty of dry weather also across Spain and Portugal, as well as southern areas of France. However, this wet weather is still moving into parts of Greece, bringing some showers to Santorini through the rest of this week. Looking elsewhere, it does look drier and warmer by the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Excited about this because our most successful female Olympian of all time, Dame Laura Kenny, who also happens to be a Tottenham Hotspur fan, which also makes me extremely happy as well. 5 Olympic gold medals, is with us. Hello, Laura.
Hello, how are you?
I'm really good. Lovely to see you. Listen, did you do of course, with all the medals and you and Jason and everything, did you ever do the actual carrying the torch?
I have never carried an Olympic torch. Nope.
That's the only Olympic thing probably you've never done, and I managed to pick up on it. What was your favourite Olympic? Because there was 3. We've got 2 medals in each. Do you have a favourite? It must be London 2012, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the most obvious one is London, right? I mean, I just think it was, as cliche as it sounds, it was a dream come true.
Oh, and on home turf as well.
It was, yeah. And I mean, I obviously grew up around there, so for me, it was just so special. I had so many people there.
At what point, is there a point though, because I love this with all sports people, and especially when there's all these amazing moments that they go through and when you retire as well, if there was one moment, if there's something or some moment, not even a race, but a part of a race, or is it a moment when you collect your first gold medal or the last one that stays with you more than anything else? What would that be?
Yeah, I think it was getting the medal, the very first medal. I mean, it was just, I felt like I was living in someone else's life. And really randomly, Paul McCartney was in there and he started singing Hey Jude. And that is like just stuck in my head because thousands of people randomly started singing Hey Jude.
My goodness.
Wow, what a story.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's approaching 10 to 4 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, back to the breaking news this hour. And Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, well, he appears set to walk away from the Royal Lodge without receiving any financial settlement. And that's according to information presented to the Parliament's Public Accounts Committee. The Crown Estate has informed MPs that necessary repairs to the 30-room property will almost certainly cancel out any money owed to the former tenant. Well, let's speak now to our Royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Cameron, the bad news keeps simply piling on. The former prince. It's been another terrible news day for him. Tell us more.
Well, quite, Martin. And of course, the downfall of Prince Andrew has not only led him to being scrutinised, but actually other members of the royal family as well. So let's rewind slightly here. Of course, the downfall of Prince Andrew meant he was forced to give up his lease prematurely of Royal Lodge. That's a 30-room mansion on the Windsor estate. He's moving to Sandringham. But when he formally gave up notice on that lease, there was a question mark whether he would be entitled to more than £400,000, almost £500,000 of compensation from the Crown Estate. But what this letter has shown to the Public Accounts Committee that was published this afternoon is that it is incredibly unlikely that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor even is going to be entitled to any compensation, because an inspection was done of Royal Lodge when he gave up that lease, and it was found to be in, let's be frank, a bit of a state of disrepair and requires a lot of work doing to it, which means Andrew unlikely to get any public money whatsoever. But the Crown Estate document goes on to talk about other members of the royal family's living arrangements with properties on the Crown Estate, including the Prince and Princess of Wales, who of course recently moved into Forest Lodge on that estate, and the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, who live at Bagshot Park, which is another property on that estate. Now, a newspaper reported that that Prince Edward, who lives in Bagshot Park, was also only paying peppercorn rent following quite an upfront payment when he moved in the late 1990s. That wasn't specifically spelled out in the document, but of course I think it's important to make the distinction that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, no longer a working member of the royal family and has clearly disgraced himself. Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, still very hard-working members of the royal family and regularly are called upon by the British government to represent Brands Britain abroad. So perhaps not a fair comparison there, but it does make it very clear that with the Prince and Princess of Wales's arrangements when it comes to living in Forest Lodge, it confirms that the property was independently valued and that they pay basically market rent. In other words, they're not being given any special treatment by being the future king and queen, which does seem to contradict Prince Andrew's previous living arrangements with Royal Lodge, because he is paying peppercorn rent, although he did pay quite a lot of money up front when he moved in 2003. But the wider context here is significant, because this Andrew downfall has really sparked more scrutiny and more demand for transparency when it comes to royal deals and royal finances, particularly when it comes to living arrangements, because it is being scrutinised by the Public Accounts Committee, the group of MPs responsible for scrutinising how public money is spent. And by extension, the British public and the media can now scrutinise royal finances. So perhaps this has set a bit of a precedent as to how royal finances are dealt with when it comes to living arrangements. So gone are the days, perhaps, of the secret arrangements that take place, the grace and favour deals of the past. No longer. It appears to just be now market rents like any member of the British public when it comes to living arrangements on any kind of land within the United Kingdom. But the Commons Committee is set to launch an inquiry now into the Crown Estate following questions over Andrew's lease of Royal Lodge. So I suspect this is not the end of it.
Cameron, can I ask you a cheeky question? We've got a quick 30 seconds. Do you think in the end that the former prince will get so fed up with this he might clear off abroad somewhere, perhaps like Dubai?
Well, I think Andrew, well, possibly, of course, he is now a private citizen, but I don't think he'd be able to afford to move to Dubai, Martin. The only income I know that he definitely gets is his military pension, which is just over £10,000 a year. As things stand, it will be his brother, the king, privately funding him, living on the Sandringham estate.
How the mighty have fallen. Cameron Walker, superb as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Now, still to come on the show, David Lammy has today been nicknamed Lammy Dodger after the Deputy PM performed a blatant U-turn on jury trials. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've seen scattered showers across the south and the west today, and they'll make a little bit further northeastern progress over the next few hours, interspersed by clear spells, and it remains breezy with low pressure sitting to the northwest of the country and this southwesterly airflow. That's what's pushing the showers from the south into the Midlands, parts of eastern England, as well as much of northern England and Scotland through the evening. After around midnight, I think the showers will once again become restricted to southern and western coasts. Clear spells developing inland, still some patchy cloud, but where we do get those clear spells, temperatures will fall away. It won't be freezing first thing. Temperatures typically around 3 to 5 Celsius, but in one or two sheltered spots across eastern Scotland and northeast England, we will see a touch of frost. And some mist and fog patches around first thing across the Midlands, southeast England, for example. Still some showers along the south coast, but more especially into Wales, western parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and western and northwest Scotland. In fact, some more persistent rain, I suspect, through northwest Scotland during the morning. A stark contrast to the sunny skies that we'll see across eastern Scotland and elsewhere through central and eastern England. So mixed bag for Wednesday. Still some showers around, and this time the focus for showers will be across Scotland, northern England, West Wales. A few showers into the south, but not as many as Tuesday. And in between, well, certainly through the Midlands, eastern England, decent sunny spells, 8 to 11 Celsius. The breeze picks up in the west, and it turns cloudy in Northern Ireland as we end the day, ahead of this band of rain, which will push some wet weather into Northern Ireland through the evening, and then that reaches western fringes of Britain during the night. But it clears first thing Thursday to a showery setup for Friday and the weekend.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for our more than 2 million YouTube subscribers and more than 2 billion views. That is Britain watching, sharing and making its voice heard louder than ever before.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists on the A87 Skye Bridge should exercise caution due to strong winds. An incident on the A4232 southbound near Leckwith Road may affect journeys. In Surrey, a collision on the M25 clockwise between junction 10 and 11 has closed 2 lanes, causing lengthy delays. Oxfordshire's A34 southbound is delayed due to a broken down vehicle blocking 1 lane. And on the trains, Thameslink is experiencing major disruption between London St Pancras International and London Bridge, as well as between Haywards Heath and Brighton. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's the greatest cash prize of a Great British giveaway so far. A simply stunning £85,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like, making 2026 your greatest year to date. That could get you that brand new car, extend and improve your home, take you away on that bucket list holiday, or just give you some peace of mind over the coming months. For a chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Blinds close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. I love that celestial festive music. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debates and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a stonker of a show, and here's what's on the menu today. David Lammy has been nicknamed Lammy Dodger after the Deputy PM performed the blatant U-turn on jury trials back in 2020. Mr Lammy claimed criminal trials without juries are a bad idea. Well, today, the Justice Secretary banned jury trials for all but the most serious of trials. Well, the Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, was not amused.
But now he's become Justice Secretary, he's scrapping the very institution he once lauded. Which is it? Will the real David Lammy please stand up?
And meanwhile, Lord Hermer has been accused of a politically motivated attack on Nigel Farage. Keir Starmer's Attorney General has demanded that the Reform UK leader apologise for comments he allegedly made over 50 years ago. Comments Mr Farage has repeatedly denied ever making. And with Mr David Lammy also wading in on the same day, is this a desperate attempt to keep Nigel Farage out of number 10? And a sold-out Reform UK Christmas event has been cancelled after Stand Up to Racism bullied the venue. I'll be joined in the studio by Richard Tice, who claims this is a gross attack on free speech and we must fight back. And a council is plotting to remove 700 St George's and Union flags from Rushmore Borough, and that's the home to the British Army there in Aldershot. The flags were erected by local patriots and Army veterans, but the council claims they cause distress and are political. Well, I'll be joined by furious residents who helped put up the flags, who says that is utter nonsense. Well, the show is a pleasure to have your company. We've got some breaking news for you now, and I'm delighted to say thank you very, very much to you, our wonderful GB News viewers, because GB News has just in this past half an hour, we've found out ourselves, it's been crowned the #1 news channel in Britain for the 5th month running. And not only that, GB News beat Sky News, our tired rival, every single day in November. And crucially, that includes the Budget Day. Budget Day, we trounced Sky News, including the analysis, the coverage itself. People are increasingly turning to GB News, the home of free speech, the People's Channel, where you actually get balanced opinions. Friends of mine who don't agree with the politics of GB News love the channel because it has balance. It has both sides of the story. People accuse us of being biased. That's absolute nonsense. Everybody gets a fair hearing. You see that, the viewers, and you're flocking to us in record numbers. And I want to sincerely thank all of you for your support. It truly is magnificently appreciated. The best viewers on the planet. We love you. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now here's your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories. The Justice Secretary has confirmed a major overhaul of jury trials, saying some cases carrying sentences of 3 years or less will now be decided by a judge alone and not a jury. David Lammy says the changes, along with expanding magistrate sentencing powers to 18 months, will speed up cases and help tackle the record Crown Court backlog. But the Conservatives are attacking the plan. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick says scrapping jury trials is dangerous.
If the Justice Secretary gets away with this, it's the beginning of the end of jury trials. He's already in retreat. Let's unite to send him packing.
David Lammy pushed back, insisting juries remain fundamental, but says too many defendants are playing the system and victims deserve faster justice.
In his tirade, he never once mentioned victims. Not once. Not once in his clip did he talk about the people waiting in that backlog.
Well, the Justice Secretary has revealed that 12 prisoners have been mistakenly released from jail in the past month, and 2 are still on the run. David Lammy says the pair at large are not violent or sexual offenders, but won't give further details while police prepare arrests. It comes after a series of blunders across the prison estate, including the wrongful release of convicted sex offender Brahim Kadur Sharif and the case of Hadush Kabatu, whose mistaken release sparked protests in Essex. Mr Lammy says stronger security checks are now in place, calling the early signs a downward trend, but admits there remains a mountain to climb to fix the system. A long-awaited report says 12 ex-police officers would have faced gross misconduct charges over the Hillsborough disaster, but none can be disciplined because they'd already retired back in 2012. The police watchdog found fundamental failures on the day and concerted efforts to blame fans, leaving families with what lawyers call another bitter injustice. Now, a stark warning today from the OECD, which says tax rises and spending cuts will drag on the UK economy for the next 2 years, slowing growth and keeping inflation among the highest in the G7. The report says fiscal tightening is acting as a headwind, with household incomes squeezed and consumption weakening. Growth is now expected to fall to 1.2% next year and inflation to stay stubbornly high through 2026. It comes as pressure mounts on Chancellor Rachel Reeves after last week's £26 billion tax-raising budget, though she insists her choices will help bring prices down and stabilise the economy. Elsewhere, a British man has been detained in Ukraine on suspicion of spying for Russia, according to Ukraine's security service. Investigators say the suspect, a former member of the UK Armed Forces who travelled to Ukraine last year to train soldiers, was later recruited by Russia's FSB, allegedly tempted by easy money. He is accused of passing Ukrainian military coordinates to Moscow and even preparing terrorist attacks, including receiving instructions to build an IED. He was arrested in October, is now being held on suspicion of passing unauthorised information to Russia, charges that could carry up to 12 years in prison if convicted. And new immigration laws set to receive royal assent this week will hand immigration enforcement officers unprecedented powers to target people smuggling gangs. For the first time, officers will be able to order illegal migrants to remove coats, jackets or gloves at UK ports, to search for phones and even inspect inside someone's mouth for hidden SIM cards or micro devices. The Home Office says the aim is to seize crucial early-stage intelligence, including messages between smugglers and migrants, to help disrupt the criminal networks driving channel crossings. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, there's more from me in half an hour.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, David Lammy has today been nicknamed Lammy Dodger after the Deputy PM performed a blatant U-turn, it seemed, on jury trials. Well, today, the Justice Secretary banned jury trials for all but the most serious of offences and trials, and the Justice Secretary made the announcement in the Commons earlier on today. Let's take a look.
First, I will create new Swift courts within the Crown Court, with a judge alone deciding verdicts in triable either-way cases with a likely sentence of 3 years or less, as Sir Brian recommends. Sir Brian estimates that they will deliver justice at least 20% faster than jury trials.
Well, the Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick was quick to criticise the so-called hypocrisy of Mr Lammy's reforms.
He found juries, and I quote, act as a filter for prejudice. But now he's become Justice Secretary, he's scrapping the very institution he once lauded. Which is it? Will the real David Lammy please stand up?
But with 12 prisoners having been accidentally released in the past 3 weeks alone, will this move actually stamp out the chaos in our criminal justice system? Well, I'm joined in the studio by GB News' political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, welcome to the studio. Always an absolute pleasure. It's all kicking off. And the bone of contention here is not only the scrapping of jury trials, which many believe is absolutely central to a functioning judicial and system.
Centuries-old privilege of being Brits.
Magna Carta. But the highlights, the light is being shone on an apparent U-turn from David Lammy. 5 years ago, couldn't get enough of jury trials. Now, as Justice Secretary,
I'm more sympathetic to David Lammy on that, because back at that time, of course, COVID had happened. The government was looking at suspending jury trials. You couldn't have a jury if you might catch COVID. You wear a mask. It was very difficult to run the court system at the start of the COVID pandemic, certainly. And then since then, the list of people waiting to be seen in courts has gone from 40,000 to 80,000. We'll hit 100,000 by 2028. I think something has to be done. What they're doing is abandoning Article 9 of Magna Carta, which is what we've all been brought up with. We learned it at school. That is the fundamentals. It's nearest we have to a written constitution. It should really be, I think, sunsetted. I mean, when they clear this backlog, but it could be into the 2030s when it happens.
Explain what sunsetted means to our viewers who don't understand the parlance.
Of course. Well, that means literally when the sun goes down, the law, the change ceases to be. So in a sense, once you've cleared your backlog, you go back to where we were in 12, 15, which feels about right. I think it does seem like a bit of a reach over and sort of getting rid of a primary right we have as Brits to a jury trial.
But Robert Jenrick was quick to point out, he was in the studio with us an hour ago, saying just open the courts 24 hours a day. I mean, they did that after the Southport riots. They did it after the Tottenham riots. There is the capacity to go more broadband on the approach. Do that. Keep the juries.
But is there the money for that? That's the question we're maybe asking a government minister shortly. These so-called swift courts, they will say that anything below a maximum term of 3 years in jail could go through them, but they're only 20% faster than a jury trial. That's what's concerning. Why not faster? 20% to have a judge giving out judge dread, being the law and giving out the sentencing.
Chris, I want to talk about something else that's come out in the news today, and it's the mistakenly released prisoner numbers. I think we've got a graphic we can show you on our screen now, and it's simply gone through the roof. Look at that. Yep. 262 mistaken releases in 2025, up an astonishing number from just 87 in 2024. It's been steadily clambering upwards, but it's got significantly worse under the Labour Party's watch. And now, Chris, I know you were particularly annoyed earlier on because David Lammy refused to come on GB News.
Well, it's even worse than that, but he gave out the fact that there's now 2 mistaken release prisoners on the run. He told that to a rival TV channel by not coming on our channel to tell us it. Why can't we be here first here at GB News, given the record-breaking viewing figures you've announced in the past few moments?
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. So stick with us. I'm delighted now to join my next guest, and that's the Minister of State for Courts and Legal Services. That is Sarah Sackman, MP. Sarah Sackman, it's a pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us. It must be a very, very busy day for you. So David Lammy is being accused of a U-turn here because back in 2020 he was all in favour of jury trials and now he's suddenly against them. What changed?
Well, let me explain why we're bringing forward the plans that we're announcing today. As you've just said, there are almost 80,000 cases in our backlog waiting to be heard. And behind each and every one of those 80,000 cases, there's a victim, someone who's been accused of crime, whose lives are in limbo. I spoke to a couple of victims of rape yesterday who waited 5 years for their case to come to court. That's lives on hold. And in many cases, it means that justice isn't being served because we know that many witnesses and many victims are walking away. So the plans that we're outlining today, which build on the independent review that we asked Sir Brian Leveson, one of our preeminent judges, to make recommendations, are all about delivering swifter justice for victims.
Sarah Sackman, people have reservations. The data shows, the Free Speech Union were on the show last night, showing that you're twice as likely to be convicted over a free speech issue if you go before a barrister or a judge as before a jury. So are you not concerned that getting rid of juries is another nudge towards being a more authoritarian state?
Let me be absolutely clear that we're not getting rid of juries. If anything, we are actually seeking to rebuild confidence in our justice system, including our jury trials, which will always be there for the most serious offences. Jury trials are a cornerstone of British justice, and these plans don't change that. What they do is deliver basic fairness to the British public. At the moment, what we are saying is that a defendant can insist on a jury trial, say if they've nicked a bottle of whiskey, and put themselves in the same queue as the victim of rape and other really serious crimes. That's not right. Why should the defendant be able to insist on a right to a jury? We should have the right mode of trial determined by our courts so that we can deliver swifter justice for victims and ensure that there is jury trial in a fair and timely fashion for the most serious crimes.
OK, Sarah Sackman, I'm joined by Chris Hope, our political editor. He has a question for you.
Sarah Sackman, you're a KC, you're a senior barrister. You know the importance of Magna Carta to our justice system. Why not impose a sunset clause on your plan? So, yes, clear your 80,000 backlog, but then when that's cleared, go back to those centuries-old right to a jury that we all have.
I'm really glad you mentioned Magna Carta, because Magna Carta guarantees is the right to a fair trial. What Magna Carta says in Article 40 is that justice needs to be delivered swiftly. There can't be delay and have a fair trial, and that's what our plans today are all about. Your viewers may not know, but 90% of our cases currently are dealt with in our magistrates' court, judge only, without a jury trial. We reserve jury trial because we realise how important it is for the most serious cases, and that will remain the case after these plans are brought forward.
Sarah Sackman, may I bring to your attention the mistaken release, the early release figures of prisoners? That they are really, really appallingly going up under the Labour Party's watch. We have it on screen there now. 262 prisoners mistakenly released in 2025. This is entirely on the Labour Party's watch. This is the party that's losing control of our justice system, isn't it?
Releases in error and the trajectory that we're on is simply not good enough. When we came in, there were 17 releases in error a month. That's crept up to 22, and I agree, that's not good enough. It's really important that we grip the situation. The reason it's happening is because we inherited a justice system under pressure. The reason we're bringing forward the plans I've been speaking about today in our courts is because our courts are in crisis. Our prisons are also in crisis. It's why we're building more prison places. But there's no doubt that we've got to get a grip. It's why we've asked Dame Lynn Owens to conduct her review, to make recommendations for the sorts of checks that we can be making. It's why we've instigated digital reforms in some of our busiest prisons to get a grip on the situation. But I, like you, want to see those numbers heading down.
Sarah Sackman, thank you very much for joining us today on GB News. I sincerely appreciate your time. That's the Minister of State for Courts and Legal Services and Labour MP for Finchley and Golders Green, Sarah Sackman. Thank you very much indeed. Now, elsewhere today, Labour top brass has attacked Nigel Farage for alleged racist and anti-Semitic comments he made over 50 years ago as a schoolboy. But in an unprecedented move, the Attorney-General, Sir Keir Starmer's man, Lord Hermer, has waded in, calling for Nigel Farage to apologise. And coincidentally, on the same day, the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, has also waded in.
I think Nigel Farage should apologise.
I do. You know, I've had a few. I was at school at the same time as Nigel Farage, late 70s, early 80s, and I've had a few former classmates contact me and apologise for some of the racial abuse that I suffered in that particular era. He should do the same.
Well, last week on GB News, Nigel Farage adamantly denied any allegations of anti-Semitism.
I've had huge support from the Jewish community over many, many of my years in UKIP, the Brexit Party, and now with Reform. And yes, of course, since October the 7th in particular, I've been a very strong supporter of Jewish rights in this country, and everyone knows that.
Let's now speak with the barrister and the writer, Stephen Barrett. Stephen, always a pleasure to have your company, my learned friend. I put it to you quite simply. Why on earth is the Attorney-General, Lord Hermer, Sir Keir Starmer's man, wading in on a politically motivated attack of an allegation that's been denied, that probably can't ever be proven? Is this just another part of the establishment's attack to try and keep Nigel Farage out of power?
Well, let me be in no doubt about this, Martin. The Attorney-General has disgraced his office, OK? And I want to point out why it's slightly worse than I think even we're grasping. He's presumed guilt. Okay? In this country, we have a presumption of innocence. You are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The Attorney-General, who should uphold that principle and all of our noble principles of justice, has presumed Nigel Farage is guilty, and then called for punishment. That is an utter betrayal of everything that our country stands for, everything in our history of justice, and it goes hand in hand with the removal of trial by jury. It just does. These people authoritarian left-wingers, and they are always authoritarian left-wingers who take away the right to trial by jury in human societies. These people start from a presumption of guilt for anybody they don't like, and they don't like Nigel Farage, so they are presuming him guilty. With this, they show us what they are: disgraceful authoritarian control freaks. And I frankly cannot wait for this government to fall, and this type of person should not hold power in our country again.
And Stephen Barrett, as if by magic, David Lammy also waded in on the precise same morning. It had all the indications of a joined-up politicised attack. This is the Justice Secretary. On the same day he's cancelling jury trials, he's judge and jury for Nigel Farage.
Yes, and I'm sorry, Martin, I'm going to call him the Lord Chancellor, because I think that's the more noble office that he holds and important in our constitution. And to have the Lord Chancellor and the Attorney General disgrace their offices in a single day, to let down His Majesty the King and to let down us, it's just, these people are showing you who they are. Christopher Hope had a brilliant question for the Minister, and she didn't answer because she couldn't answer. Why won't they put in a sunset clause? Because they want to remove juries. These are desperately controlling, nasty little people. I mean, they're not terribly brave or strong. I call this a dictatorship, a tyranny of weak men. But they have disgraced their offices. Both the Lord Chancellor and the Attorney General should resign. In a functioning world, they would resign. But then in a functioning world, so would the Chancellor.
Stephen Barrett, I just can't abide the way you sit on the fence every time you come on this show. But on that point, you flattered Christopher Hope there. He has a question for you, Chris. Fire away.
Well, see, I mean, yes, enjoying the polemic there. But just looking at what Lord Hermer said to The Guardian, he pointed out that 20 people have witnessed it or were victims of what Nigel Farage may have said to them at school. And he says that the changing story is unconvincing because Nigel Farage has said initially he didn't remember it, then he denied it absolutely. So he has changed his story, and Lord Hermer is a Jewish peer. I mean, he has a right to criticise, doesn't he, the leader of a party head in the polls. I mean, this is politics, right?
No, the Office of Attorney General is more important than that, and it really shouldn't be involved in rough play and bad party politics. If you look at the very noble and very Jewish Shadow Attorney General, you'll not see this type of behaviour from Lord Wolfson of Tredegar. Lord Hermer has disgraced his office. This is trial by media, quite clearly. I mean, you say, evidence put not in a court, not to a jury, but evidence put to The Guardian, who, of course, are desperate fans of Mr Farage, no doubt. I mean, this is just not on. It's what The Guardian is doing is morally wrong, but they're just The Guardian. What the Attorney General is doing is utterly morally wrong, and he is the Attorney General. He is His Majesty's Attorney General. This is an absolute disgrace for the Lord Chancellor and the Attorney General. I can't phrase this any other way. No other government would have or could behave this way. I don't care what party they are. If Reform form a government, they're going to need to find a respectable person to be Attorney General who does not do this. It's that simple.
Stephen Barrett, barrister, writer and straight talker. Thank you very much for joining us today on the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have your opinion. It sincerely is. Chris Hope, a bit of reaction off the back of that. I do think that a lot of people will be looking at the fact that the Attorney General, his job should be apolitical. He's been appointed by Sir Keir Starmer. He is seen as Sir Keir Starmer's legal attack dog. Surely he has no place wading into a debate.
He's a Jewish man who speaks out about Jewish issues. I mean, I think that Nigel Farage has moved his story from not commenting to denying it. He hasn't tried to say, it was a long time ago and I regret anything I said. People say awful things at school. He may or may not have said these things. There are 20 people, witnesses or victims, according to The Guardian, who say that they are concerned about it.
But it's hearsay from 5 decades ago. Anybody could say that about anyone anywhere on the planet. And if there is any actual evidence, surely it would have come out.
It's not damaging them in the polls. I think a lot of people look at what he may or may not have said and think, well, children are mean to each other. But he should. I think so far he's been changing his story, and that's why I think Lord Hermer is stepping in. Lord Hermer is a Jewish man, a peer. He feels he can say these things. I mean, it's not quite right what Stephen was saying. 80% of what the Attorney General does, we never hear about, nor should we. That's the nuts and bolts, the plumbing of government, the legal plumbing of government. But the 20%, that can be politics, and you you do see political attorney generals in the past. And we may be hearing more from Lord Turner in coming weeks, even on GB News. So he's keen to get out there, I think, and he's doing it today. He's a Jewish man who sees what he and wants to call it out, and he does say alleged remarks.
Are you saying that his opinion is coming from a position of him being Jewish? I think that's for the birds. I think his opinion on this is coming from a political viewpoint.
Well, I think so.
Just like when he said comments are reminiscent of 1930s Germany recently, which he had to apologise for. Every time he wades in, he puts his boot in it. Perhaps you'll stick to his quill, his legal job, and stop steaming in about the politics.
The remarks on 1930s Germany, and therefore, by association, the Nazis, were given in a lecture. This is an interview in The Guardian. I think that they are on the front foot over Nigel Farage. They see a way of attacking him. And, I think his answers last week were not convincing at the beginning. He found out a firm denial after that.
It reeks of a joined-up establishment campaign, the kind of thing they threw at Donald Trump in America. I mean, that's what it's starting to feel like.
This is politics. He's a Labour politician attacking a Reform politician. That's what they do.
And he's also Sir Keir Starmer's legal hitman.
That's right.
OK.
It happens. Sorry, Martin, that's how it is?
No, I just think it's really clear and important we set that out to our viewers and our listeners. Yeah. If that's the way it is, if it's no longer Queensberry rules, if we're on the cobbles, it's going to be a long 4 years. Chris Hope, beautiful stuff. Thanks for your opinion. As ever, now still to come, we'll be getting more reaction to Keir Starmer's Attorney General, who's demanded that the Reform UK leader apologise for comments he allegedly made over 50 years ago. Comments, of course, that Nigel Farage has refutedly denied. This is GB News, 5 months on the trot, Britain's #1 news channel.
Absolutely.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Labour top brass have attacked Nigel Farage for those alleged racist and anti-Semitic comments he made as a schoolboy over 50 years ago. Today, in a completely unprecedented move, the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, has waded in, calling for Mr Farage to apologise, as, coincidentally, did the Labour Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, beg your pardon, David Lammy. Well, let's now speak with the columnist and the author, Jake Wallace-Simons. Jake, it's always an absolute pleasure to have your company. I wanted to ask you, Jake, for your take on this, because it seems astonishing to me that Lord Hermer is positioning his outrage of this story, not as a political one, but of the fact he is Jewish, and saying that Nigel Farage has not once condemned anti-Semitism. As a Jewish man, as a passionate campaigner, I have to ask you the blunt question: has Nigel Farage ever struck you as an anti-Semite?
Well, I know Nigel not very well, but a little bit, and he's never struck me as anything like an anti-Semite. You know, people do and say stupid and ridiculous things when they were 14 years old. We've all been there and done stupid things, maybe not what he's alleged to have said and done, but look, he has denied those. I think if we're talking about apologies, then I would like Lord Hermer, first of all, to apologise for comparing his own political opponents to Nazis. I would like him to apologise for saying that Britain would honour the atrocious, politically motivated arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu were the Israeli Premier to come to Britain. I would like him to apologise for suspending our arms export licences to Israel in its hour of need as it battled against the forces of Hamas, which wished to destroy Israel and would destroy us here at home as well. And I would like him to apologise for blocking Michael Gove's BDS legislation under the Tory government. Michael Gove tried to outlaw discriminatory boycotts of the Jewish state, and Lord Hermer blocked that. That's a lot of stuff which I would like Lord Hermer to apologise for before he starts to dig into the past of Nigel Farage, 50 years into the past of Nigel Farage, and get him to apologise for something that he allegedly said as a schoolboy.
Jake Wallace-Simons, you give us an interesting smorgasbord there of things that Lord Hermer has said and done against the Jewish state. If you were to be mischievous, you could accuse him of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, the line between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism is such that you can be Jewish and still have so much political venom against the Jewish state that you can become anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic yourself without really meaning to be. You know, there's always been some fringe Jews who have worked against their own people in the past. In fact, the blood libel, which was invented in Norwich in 1144, was invented by someone called Theobald of Cambridge, who was himself a Jewish convert to Christianity. And so in a way, it's a Jewish invention. So Jews have always had those people amongst their ranks. And if Lord Hermer is going to be pointing fingers against Farage for things that he allegedly said 50 years ago, I think we need to be looking into Lord Hermer's recent history and looking at the things that he's done and said against the Jewish state, against the well-being of Jewish people around the globe, and get him to rescind those, to apologise for those and take responsibility for them, and to repeat those sorts of actions. But I think I'm not holding my breath in that regard.
Jake, absolutely fascinating points there. May I ask you the broader point? You may have heard Stephen Barrett, the barrister on the show a short while ago. He was saying that this is a complete disgrace of the office of the Attorney General. Why is an Attorney General getting involved in day-to-day political tittle-tattle politically when he's speaking direct to The Guardian?
Yeah, I don't really see why Lord Hermer should be shooting his mouth off with regard to Nigel Farage anyway. I mean, he's part of the government. He's got an important job to do, such as, for example, giving away our Chagos Islands to the Mauritians and paying them billions for the privilege, an ally of China. He's got that matter to deal with. You know, and I don't really see why he's getting involved. He should be engaging in some introspection. This is a man who, in his career, in his legal career, if we go back a little bit further, went out of his way to defend terrorists who were against our country from the beginning. Jerry Adams, Al-Qaeda terrorists involved in the 9/11 attacks, in the 7/7 attacks, some ISIS members or family members. He has gone out of his way to defend all those people who hate our country and our way of life and have worked to our destruction. Those are the things he should be focusing on with contrition. He should be apologising to the British public for his past career before politics and for his political actions, as I've discussed, and leave Nigel Farage's track record from when he was a 14-year-old schoolboy well alone before he draws more attention to his own actions.
Jake Wallace-Simons, can I finally ask you a question I've been asking the entire show today, and that is, Lord Hermer is clearly Sir Keir Starmer's #1 legal man. He's his legal attack dog. On the same day, today, that David Lammy, the Deputy PM, the Justice Secretary, decided to cancel jury trials. He was also on a radio station demanding Nigel Farage apologise. The Guardian are on their haunches. The BBC are on the haunches. I put it to you, is this starting to look like an establishment attack 4 years potentially from a general election? Can we expect much more of this establishment joined up attacking to try anything they can to stop anybody getting to power they don't agree with?
Well, I think that would be filed under questions to which the answer is yes. It's just striking that they're playing this sort of dirty politics potentially so far out from a general election. There isn't one coming imminently, and they're already scraping the bottom of the barrel. I mean, going back 50 years is quite some offence archaeology, really, isn't it? It just goes to show, A, how desperate they are to try to stop reform from rising further, and B, how desperate they are for material because they haven't got anything better. As I've said, there's a lot more material on Lord Hermer himself in the past few years, in the past few decades, than there is on Nigel Farage. He needs to be starting to think about that as we approach a general election in the next few years. That's what I would do if I was him.
Jake Wallace-Simons, superb as ever, really, really to the point, brilliant. Thanks for coming on the show today. I really, really sincerely appreciate your time as ever. Thank you, Jake. Well, that was punchy. Moving on, we've got more still to come between now and 5 p.m, including Rushmore Council. Well, they will have a vote on Thursday whether to remove 700 St George's and Union flags from the borough. They say that it's political. They say locals are offended. I'll be joined by a furious councillor next.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've seen scattered showers across the south and the west today, and they'll make a little bit further northeastern progress over the next few hours, interspersed by clear spells. And it remains breezy with low pressure sitting to the northwest of the country and this southwesterly airflow. That's what's pushing the showers from the south into the Midlands, parts of eastern England, as well as much of northern England and Scotland through the evening. After around midnight, I think the showers will once again become restricted to southern and western coasts. Clear spells developing inland, still some patchy cloud, but where we do get those clear spells, temperatures will fall away. It won't be freezing first thing. Temperatures typically around 3 to 5 Celsius, but in 1 or 2 sheltered spots across eastern Scotland and northeast England, we will see a touch of frost. And some mist and fog patches around first thing across the Midlands, southeast England, for example. Still some showers along the south coast, but more especially into Wales, western parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and western and northwest Scotland. In fact, some more persistent rain, I suspect, through northwest Scotland during the morning. A stark contrast to the sunny skies that we'll see across eastern Scotland and elsewhere through central and eastern England. So mixed bag for Wednesday, still some showers around, and this time the focus for showers will be across Scotland, northern England, West Wales. A few showers into the south, but not as many as Tuesday. And in between, well, certainly through the Midlands, eastern England, decent sunny spells, 8 to 11 Celsius. The breeze picks up in the west and it turns cloudy in Northern Ireland as we end the day, ahead of this band of rain, which will push some wet weather into Northern Ireland through the evening, and then that reaches western fringes of Britain during the night. But it clears first thing Thursday to a showery setup for Friday and the weekend.
Thank you, Britain, for sharing over 5 million comments on your say, because when you talk, we listen.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Road users should be cautious on the A87 Skye Bridge due to high winds. Delays are on the A4232 southbound between the A48 interchange and Leckwith Road. In Cumbria, M6 southbound exit lanes at Todd Hill Services are closed due to a collision. Relief expected around 5:10 p.m. There's a 30-minute delay on the A34 southbound in Oxfordshire due to a broken down vehicle. The M25 clockwise between junctions 10 and 11 in Surrey faces delays from a collision. And on the trains, Thameslink services face disruption between London St Pancras International and Elephant and Castle. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 4:38. With me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, this Thursday, Rushmore Borough Council is to debate a motion on whether the Union flags, 700 of them indeed, that were raised during the Raise the Colours protests, should be taken down. Now, if the motion passes, then Rushmore Borough Council would make a formal request to Hampshire County Council to remove nearly 700 St George's and Union flags as soon as possible, to the anger of many residents, some of whom are military veterans. Of course, it's in the area of Aldershot, our garrison town. Let's now speak with the Conservative councillor for Cove and Southwood, and that is Martin Tennant. Martin, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. I've been contacted by some of the residents who put these flags up. They did so from a position of patriotism, a position of pride. Many of them are serving and former military veterans. And yet, a vote could go ahead on Thursday to take them all down. The council claim people are offended. The council claim that these flags are political. You're about to vote in this. What on earth is going on?
Well, it's a strange situation. Some politicians are really struggling to understand what's happening and why, but they shouldn't just assume the worst of people. We know many people who put the flags up locally, certainly in our borough, are veterans and ex-members of the forces. Indeed, it's, as you've rightly suggested, it's more on a reason of patriotism and pride in our history and our flag than perhaps political motivations. And we're really hoping that the Liberal Democrats will withdraw this motion, which we think is really misguided. And, if it does go forward, we, as the Conservative group, will certainly be voting against it.
So in terms of the metrics of the council, Martin Tennant, until recently, I believe, Rushmore was a Labour-controlled council, but 4 of them resigned. And so now it's kind of split, as it were. This is a Liberal Democrat motion. It's not a Labour motion. So presumably, the patriotic Labour Party, the party that wraps themselves now the Union flag, presumably they'll have every opportunity to vote against this and keep the flags flying. Do you think they will?
Well, I think that's a question for the evening. We'll certainly wait and see. I think, as a party, they very well may be divided on it. There's certainly been some members of the Labour group who've felt deeply uncomfortable seeing Union flags around the place. So we'll have to wait and see how they vote on the night.
Martin Tennant, why are Labour councillors offended by the Union flag? Why are Labour councillors offended by the St George's flag, particularly as we keep mentioning on here, of course, Aldershot is in the area. Aldershot is the military garrison town of Britain, the heart, the home, the pulse, the epicentre of our armed forces. If these people are offended by the flag, aren't they in the wrong borough?
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely, we should not be offended ever by the Union flag or the St George's Cross, come to think of it. We've got a proud history of connection with the military, the historic home of the British Army. I think it would be remiss of anybody to vote to remove these flags, in my personal opinion anyway.
Martin Tennant, I'm quoting a document here that's been put forward for the motion, one you've obviously seen yourself, and it says this: many residents are distressed that the flags are being used in a manner that betrays what the flag stands for. They're saying, and they go on, this borough is the home of the British Army, and many who have risked their lives to defend this very values the flag represents are being let down by this misuse. Some have even made the ultimate sacrifice. So what they're actually saying here, Martin Tennant, is that people served in the military, it's the home of the military, some people died in the military, and yet magically people are suddenly offended by the flag.
It's ludicrous. I mean, that's not the feedback we're receiving, certainly. We've had numerous people contact us on the back of hearing that this motion's coming forward and being, annoyed by the fact that it's coming forward. So I'm hoping that the Liberals do the right thing and just withdraw this, because it's just divisive at the end of the day, unnecessary, and, putting words in people's mouths which perhaps are not correct.
Martin, let me ask you a simple question. Have you heard from a solitary human being in the Rushmore area who's offended by these flags?
Myself personally, no, not one.
So the people who are offended by this flag seem to be the Liberal Democrats and potentially the Liberal Democrat voters. I put it to you, they should not be the tail that's wagging the dog. A few tin pot councillors shouldn't be deciding what happens in a town, an army town, a garrison town. I put it to you, it's the councillors who are offended, it's the Liberal Democrats who are offended, not the vast majority of people in your area.
Well, that would certainly be backed up by, the residents I've spoken to who aren't offended. So one will hope that, sanity will prevail and, this will be withdrawn because we can't support it. It's just ludicrous at the end of the day.
Well, that's the Conservative councillor there for Cove and Southwood and that area, Martin Tennant. Martin Tennant, you'll be voting against this motion. I'm just saying now, we'll be covering this story on Friday. Let's see how those Labour councillors vote, but we will be analysing this one later on in the show. I'll be joined by a gentleman called Jez Stocking. He helped put those flags up. He was one of the guys going around putting the flags up. He'll be on the show. He's a patriot. He's got many friends who are army veterans. We'll get his side of the story later on in the show. But for now, Martin Tennant, thank you very much for your time today on GB News. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So let's see how they vote on Thursday. We'll let you know on Friday. Now, coming up on today's show, new figures reveal more than 1 million pensioners face spending Christmas alone this year. But first, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're planning on escaping the rain this week, well, unfortunately, there's still some rain affecting the parts of the Mediterranean. High pressure, though, in the Canaries, bringing plenty of dry weather to Madeira, 17 degrees here. Plenty of dry weather also across Spain and Portugal, as well as southern areas of France. However, this wet weather is still moving into parts of Greece, bringing some showers to Santorini through the rest of this week. Looking elsewhere, it does look drier and warmer by the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I think a lot of you at home are going to be quite annoyed with this. Now, Tesco, the big supermarket chain, appears to have got rid of the famous Christmas trees, instead renaming them evergreen
trees.
Evergreen trees.
The evergreen tree.
Here we are. So if you're listening on the radio, these are pictures of their boxes of artificial Christmas trees without the word Christmas on them at all, instead calling them evergreen trees. There are still a number of Christmas trees available called Christmas trees.
Christmas trees,
but I think it has clearly annoyed quite a lot of people. Why do you call them evergreen trees? Can't you just call them Christmas?
Just call them Christmas trees. I call them Christmas trees even outside of the time of Christmas. If they look like a Christmas tree, I call them a Christmas tree, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And the Conservative leader of the London Assembly, Susan Hall, she's told The Telegraph, it's Christmas. It's a Christmas tree. People don't tend to put up green plastic fir trees for any other reason. It's all stupid nonsense about offending other people and other religions. Well, below that, this is supposed to be a Christian country. We have Christmas. Let's celebrate it, says Susan Hall.
Actually, other religions are not offended by the celebration of Christmas in a Christian country. You speak to Hindus and Buddhists and the vast majority of Muslims, they're not in the slightest bit bothered and actually will join in those celebrations as well. It doesn't offend them. But what you've got are marketing divisions within these big companies where you've got Tarquin and Tabitha who feel that we must do what we can do to not offend the great British public. And the great British public are the ones that are actually buying the product, and they're not in the slightest bit offended.
Can I just say it offends me that we've got Christmas already and it's not December.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Well, good back. It's approaching 10 to 5. There'll be Martin Daubney on GB News. 5 months on the trot, Britain's #1 news channel. Now, the daughter of an elderly dog walker who was attacked by teenagers in the park last year says there were multiple police failures leading up to his death. Bim Coley was killed walking his dog in Leicestershire last September, but had reported multiple incidents of antisocial behaviour against him in the months before he passed away. Our national reporter Jack Carson has this story.
My dad, unfortunately, had to lose his life before the police took any action.
In September last year, Bim Coley walked his dog into Franklin Park in Braunstone, Leicester. He would never come home. Kicked and punched by a 15-year-old boy, whilst a 13-year-old girl laughed and filmed the attack on her phone, Mr. Coley sustained fractured ribs and a spinal cord injury and died 24 hours later. Now his daughter Susan says failures by Leicestershire police in the months leading up to his death mean it could have been avoided. A pattern of antisocial behaviour began in June 2024, when youths climbed onto a neighbour's garage roof. In July, the harassment escalated, when youths spat at Mr. Coley outside his home. In August, another man was attacked in the park. Susan and her father caught youths throwing stones at the victim, subjecting him to racial abuse and spitting at him. The suspects were identified within 2 days, but no arrests were made until after Bim Coley's death, 17 days later.
They chose to just sit on it and not take the action that they should have when they identified 2 youths causing trouble. When you put a police presence in the area, that puts a deterrent in place because it moves that behaviour on.
The force's own...
Let's crash out there now. Cross over live to the White House, where President Donald Trump is holding a cabinet meeting.
A period of 4 years. Think of it. 4 years they had less than $1 trillion. In 10 months we have more than 18 trillion. Is that right, Scott? It's even going to be higher than that.
It'll be higher,
and going up. And we're waiting for the Supreme Court case, and it's so important and so vital for this country because we're not only respected again, we're putting out wars by our trade policies, and we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars, and our country is wealthy again and secure again, and it's part of national security, and I hope that goes well. I think it's very important, but think of the number. We're going to be over $18 trillion in 10 months, and which is a record times probably 8 or 10 times, I think more than that, for any country. There's never been a country that's had that kind of an investment ever in history. And there's never been a country that's had half of that. It's a tremendous thing that's taking place. We have companies moving in from all over the world, from Mexico, from Canada, from Europe, from China, from Japan a lot. We just had Toyota is going to spend $10 billion, they just announced, on building new plants in this country. Our workers, they're going to be our workers, but they're spending a tremendous amount. So the stock market has set 46 all-time highs, and this last Friday, which is called Black Friday, was the biggest ever online sales that there's ever been by a lot. More Americans are working today than at any time in the history of our country. I mean, these are the facts we have to get out. And, you know, there's this fake narrative that the Democrats talk about, affordability. They just say the word. It doesn't mean anything to anybody. Just say it. Affordability. I inherited the worst inflation in history. There was no affordability. Nobody could afford anything. The prices were massively high. Do you remember when we took over eggs? You did a great job on that, Madam Secretary. Agriculture, Brooke. Eggs were 4 or 5 times higher than they had ever been. They said don't order eggs for Easter at the White House. And we ended up doing it, and we got the egg prices way down, lower than what they were before. But the word affordability is a con job by the Democrats. They say affordable. I watched the other day where some very low IQ congresswoman talked about affordability, affordability, affordability. She had no idea. Their prices were much higher. As an example, energy, gasoline, we're now at about $2.50 a gallon. We're going to be, I think, at $2 a gallon. We could even crack that at some point. I'd love to do it. And we could do it more easily if we weren't building up the strategic national reserves, which Biden emptied out before the election so that he could try and get elected, meaning he started it, then he got thrown out of the race. Then she took over and she kept it going, and they emptied out these strategic national reserves, which are really meant for something else. They're not meant to keep people happy with their gasoline price. They're meant for war. They're meant for problems, big problems. He emptied it out, and then she continued it during the process of trying to get elected. Didn't work out too well for him. And they virtually brought it down to the lowest level, I believe, in history. And it didn't have much of an impact because the prices were very high. But our prices now for energy, but for gasoline, are really low. Electricity's coming down. And when that comes down, everything comes down. But the word affordability is a Democrat scam. They say it, and then they go on to the next subject. And everyone thinks, oh, they had lower prices. No, they had the worst inflation in the history of our country. Now, some people will correct me, because they always love to correct me, even though I'm right about everything. But some people like to correct me, and they say 48 years. I say it's not 48 years, it's much more. But they say it's the worst inflation that we've had in 48 years. I say ever. But whether it's 48 years or ever, it's pretty bad. We had the worst inflation that we've ever had. Since last January, we've stopped inflation in its tracks. And there's still more to do. There's always more to do, but we have it down to a very good level. It's going to go down a little bit further. You want to have a little tiny bit of inflation, otherwise that's not good either. Then you have a thing called deflation. And deflation can be worse than inflation. But we have it almost, we'll soon be at a perfect level, but we inherited the worst inflation. But we have 20 states that are now selling gasoline at less than the $2.75, think of that, $2.75, and it was at $5 under Sleepy Joe. Grocery prices are down with the cost of Thanksgiving turkey this year down 33%. It was lower than 33% lower than under the Biden administration. Egg prices are way down 86%, thank you. And mortgage rates, despite the fact that we have an incompetent chairman of the Fed, a real dope, who should reduce rates. I saw even Jamie Dimon said he should be reducing rates. I never saw Jamie Dimon say that. I wonder why he said that. But he really said it because he's right. But we have a guy that's just a stubborn ox who probably doesn't like your president, your favorite president. But they're going to be coming down. We'll be announcing somebody probably early next year for the new chairman of the Fed. I talked to Scott about taking the job, but he doesn't want it. You got the greatest job here.
Yes, sir.
Right? He said, no, I want to stay chairman. I want to stay right where we are, Treasury. And I think we're doing really great, aren't we? Yeah?
We're doing great, sir. It's a great team to be part of.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Under my executive order to lower prescription drug prices, which I think is the single biggest thing we've ever done that nobody writes about because you're fake news. I've made unprecedented deals along with Bobby and Oz and all of the people that work on it. A lot of people that you wouldn't even think work on it, but they do, to slash drug prices by 200%, 300%, 400%, 500%, 600%, 700%, 800%. Nobody's ever heard of it before because I instituted favored nations, and no nation agreed to do it. And then I said to the nations, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to charge you 100% tariff, which is more money than we're talking about. And they said, sir, we'd love to do it. Please, we would be honored to do it. And they agreed that they would go along with the whole thing. Nobody thought you could do it because they felt, number one, you couldn't get the drug companies to do it. So we're paying, as an example, for the, let's call it the fat drug, F-A-T, for fat people. Anybody use it at the table? Don't ask. But the fat drug was $135. Think of that. For certain people, $1,300 for certain countries, $1,300 in New York. So in New York it was $1,300, and in London it was $135. And a friend of mine called me, he said, what is this? Why is it? He got used to paying $1,300. Well, now what we have it down to is, Bobby, what's the number? Like 150 or something? We have it down to a low number, don't we?
Yeah, it's around 100, 125, 150.
Think of that. So we got it down from $1,300 to $125 to $140, depending on various countries. In other words, we're paying the lowest price, tied for the lowest price in the world. People said you could never do that because you couldn't get the countries to agree to it. I did. Every country agreed to it because I said, if you're not going to agree to it, that's okay, I'm going to charge you tariffs. And as soon as I said that, they said, we agree. And then we had to be a little tough with the drug companies, but they came along. The bigger problem was the countries. The countries just wouldn't go along with it, but they did.
Donald Trump there at the White House in one of his cabinet meetings, which can go on for some time. Good afternoon. It is 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. And we're broadcasting live across the UK, all the very latest news, debates and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a corker of a show, and here's what's on your menu. Today, David Lammy has been nicknamed Lammy Dodger after the Deputy PM performed the blatant U-turn on jury trials back in 2020. Mr. Lammy claimed criminal trials without juries are a bad idea. Well, today, the Justice Secretary banned jury trials for all but the most serious of trials, and the Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick was not amused.
But now he's become Justice Secretary, he's scrapping the very institution he once lauded. Which is it? Will the real David Lammy please stand up?
Meanwhile, Lord Hermer today has been accused of a politically motivated attack on Nigel Farage. Keir Starmer's Attorney General has demanded the Reform UK leader apologise for comments he allegedly made 50 years ago. Comments Mr Farage has repeatedly denied ever making. And with David Lammy coincidentally also wading in today, is this a desperate attempt to keep Nigel Farage out of number 10? And a sold-out Reform UK Christmas event has been cancelled after Stand Up to Racism bullied the venue into submission. I'll be joined in the studio by Richard Tice, who claims this is a gross attack on free speech and we must fight back. And parents at a Kent school are livid after a team of bearded and much older asylum seekers, some of whom were even smoking ciggies, were bussed in to face 15-year-old schoolboys in a football match. Furious parents told GB News, how do we know that they're safe around children? That's all coming up on today's show. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. What a difference 5 years make. 5 years ago, David Lammy was resolutely in favour of jury trials. He even wrote in the Lammy report that trials without jury prejudiced against ethnic minorities, because without a jury representative of the communities from which the defendants came, how on earth could we trust judges? Well, today there's been a complete and utter change of position, because juries are being done away with. They're too slow, too laborious, too expensive, and instead we can trust the barristers and the judiciary, the precise people 5 years ago Mr Lammy said we shouldn't potentially be trusting. Is that a blatant U-turn on democracy? Plus, we'll have Richard Tyson, the CDO Reform UK event has been cancelled in South London, in Croydon, after Stand Up to Racism pilloried the venue. Is this a sign of things to come? Get in touch usual ways. GBNews.com/your say is the way to do so. But now to your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories this hour. The Justice Secretary has confirmed a major overhaul of jury trials, saying some cases carrying sentences of 3 years or less will now be decided by a judge alone, not a jury. David Lammy says the changes, along with expanding magistrate sentencing powers to 18 months, will speed up cases and help tackle the record Crown Court backlog. But the Conservatives are attacking the plan. Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick saying scrapping jury trials is dangerous.
If the Justice Secretary gets away with this, is the beginning of the end of jury trials. He's already in retreat. Let's unite to send him packing.
David Lammy pushed back, insisting juries remain fundamental, but says too many defendants are playing the system and victims deserve faster justice.
In his tirade, he never once mentioned victims. Not once. Not once in his clip did he talk about the people waiting in that backlog.
Another bitter injustice. A stark warning today from the OECD, which says tax rises and spending cuts will drag on the UK economy for the next 2 years, slowing growth and keeping inflation among the highest in the G7. The report says fiscal tightening is acting as a headwind, with household incomes squeezed and consumption weakening. Growth is now expected to fall to 1.2% next year and inflation to stay stubbornly high through 2026. It comes as pressure mounts on Chancellor Rachel Reeves after last week's £26 billion tax-raising budget, though she insists her choices will help bring prices down and stabilise the economy. A British man has been detained in Ukraine on suspicion of spying for Russia, according to Ukraine's security service. Investigators say the suspect, a former member of the UK armed forces who travelled to Ukraine last year to train soldiers, was later recruited by Russia's FSB, allegedly tempted by easy money. He's accused of passing Ukrainian military coordinates to Moscow and even preparing terrorist attacks, including receiving instructions to build an IED. He was arrested in October and is now being held on suspicion of passing unauthorised information to Russia, charges that could carry up to 12 years in prison if convicted. And new immigration laws set to receive royal assent this week will hand immigration enforcement officers unprecedented powers to target people smuggling gangs. For the first time, officers will be able to order illegal migrants to remove coats, jackets or gloves at UK ports, to search for phones and even inspect inside someone's mouth for hidden SIM cards or micro devices. The Home Office says the aim is to seize crucial early-stage intelligence, including messages between smugglers and migrants, to help disrupt the criminal networks driving channel crossings. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3198 and €1.1371. The price of gold is £3,172.72 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,722 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Tatiana. Now, today, David Lammy has been nicknamed Lammy Dodger after the Deputy Prime Minister performed what seems like a blatant U-turn on jury trials. Well, today, the Justice Secretary banned jury trials for all but the most serious of trials, and the Justice Secretary made the announcement in the Commons earlier on today.
First, I will create new swift courts within the Crown Court with a judge alone deciding verdicts in triable either way cases with a likely sentence of 3 years or less, as Sir Brian recommends. Sir Brian estimates that they will deliver justice at least 20% faster than jury trials.
Well, the Shadow Justice Secretary steamed in, Robert Jenrick, and he was quick to criticise the hypocrisy of Mr Lammy's reforms.
He found juries, and I quote, act as a filter for prejudice. But now he's become Justice Secretary, he's scrapping the very institution he once lauded. Which is it? Will the real David Lammy please stand up?
And with 12 prisoners having been accidentally released in the past 3 weeks alone, will this move actually stamp out the chaos in our criminal justice system? Well, I'm joined in the studio by GBNews political editor Christopher Hope and also by the Reform MP Richard Tice. Reform MP Richard Tice. Ticey, welcome to the studio. Let's start with you if we can. Let's start on David Lammy. So he's been accused here of changing his position completely in the past 5 years. 5 years ago, he was completely in favour of jury trials. Something's changed.
Well, it's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, yes, there's a backlog, but the hypocrisy of what he said just a few years ago and what he's saying now. And that clip was fascinating. It's only to save about 20% faster. I mean, it's not like it's 50, 60, 70% faster. And what I said to one of his ministerial colleagues last week in the chamber was, actually, juries are part of the cornerstone of the trust in our legal system. And if you ask the British public, they will have much more confidence in the judgment of their peers, the British public, than actually the judgment of judges, very often who are a little bit, shall we call them, wet, woke and lefty. And you only have to look at the Immigration Tribunal judgments that drives everybody absolutely bonkers, where you can't deport someone because, it's their human right to enjoy chicken nuggets in the United Kingdom, to realise that this is a very slippery slope indeed. And what you can do is, yes, let's have more efficiencies. Let's have a twin-track system, like a fast-track system. Use technology better. That can all work, and with a bit of investment by making huge savings in the waste elsewhere. I think that's what the British people want. They don't want what we're most admired and respected for around the world put in the dustbin.
Can I get some graphics on the screen? We have the numbers of people mistakenly released from prison, and it's fair to say it's going through the roof under the Labour Party. In fact, we found out today on a rival inferior broadcaster who we keep beating in the ratings that two simply slipped through the net without us even being told. Richard Tice, look at those numbers. 262 mistaken releases in 2025, and that's rocketed from 87 in 2024. Are we looking at a justice system, forget about juries, it's totally and utterly out of control?
I mean, how difficult is it to put in place a simple process of checking? And it was the same David Lammy who recently in the House of Commons said that he was putting in place the most robust checks and processes that the system had ever seen. And he was regaling about how brilliant he was going to be. And it's turned out it's absolutely catastrophic. I mean, what is wrong with these people?
But it's surprising, isn't it, Richard Tice, that we can't get this announced to Parliament. It's dragged out of the Justice Secretary in a TV interview. I don't know why on earth it's not being more upfront about it. But going back to David Lammy and that message, he made that tweet, didn't he, back in 2000, before the numbers of people waiting for court action doubled to 80,000. It's going to 100,000 by 2028. They've got to do something. If you think of the victims of these people, they're waiting 3, 4, 5 years to see their perpetrator in court. I mean, that's awful for them. That is almost a sentence for them. So why, on this, surely it's right to just temporarily suspend Magna Carta in this situation, but then bring it back in when it's been cleared.
What's right is to not increase the welfare bill in the budget by £16 billion and allocate a small amount of that to have a twin-track court system, along with better use of technology. And maybe you've got to actually have the courts open 7 days a week. Who'd have thought it? If you've got a bit of a rush on, then maybe you work 7 days a week. Shops in the run-up to Christmas, they're open longer hours. Why can't the courts do the same? There's a bit of a backlog on, folks.
OK, should we go on to my next guest now? I'm hoping to be joined by the former Labour Minister, Bill Rammell. Bill, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Clearly, the views in the studio here believe, or certainly Richard Tice, believes that it's an absolute travesty that juries are being dropped. And 5 years ago, that was the position of David Lammy as well. What on earth's changed?
Well, it's not a travesty. It's dealing with the crisis in the court system that this government inherited. Be in no doubt, Martin, that the crisis in the court system, and it is a crisis, is a direct result of the cuts under the last Conservative government, where 295 courts and tribunals were closed, and there was a 17% cut in funding. And that means that today, some serious criminal cases are taking 4 or 5 years to reach court. Now, you imagine you're the victim of that serious crime, and you're having to not know for 4 or 5 years what's going to happen to the perpetrator of the crime against you. And you're going to have to revisit the anguish of that crime 4 or 5 years down the road by giving evidence in court. You know, justice delayed in a real sense is justice denied. And this is about speeding up the process. Let's give some context here. Only 4% of criminal cases actually have trials by jury at the moment. This is about an expansion of magistrates in the role, and in some circumstances, for crimes where there's a sentence of less than 3 years, a judge presiding over that case. And to deal with the crisis, I think that's the right way forward.
Bill Bramwell, can I ask you about those mistakenly released prisoners figures, which was added to by a casual two that David Lammy threw into the mix today that the public weren't even told about? 262 mistaken releases in 2025. This is under the Labour government. 2024 it was 87. You can't keep blaming the Tories forever for everything. Who are you going to blame for this? Liz Truss? We're at the point, Bill Bramwell, was the same with the budget. The Tories are getting blamed for everything. If a comet strikes the earth, the Labour Party are going to blame Liz Truss and the Tories.
Go to every area of the public sector and they've been ravaged by 14 years of austerity and 14 years of Tory cuts. And yes, it is taking time to turn that situation around in a balanced way. Mistaken prisoner releases are unacceptable. The increase in numbers is a function of the fact that there is a prison release programme to deal with the prison overcrowding crisis taking place, which means more prisoners are being released. But any mistaken release
by the Labour government.
Yeah, and my understanding from the figures today is that the scale of the mistaken releases are coming down, but they need to come down to zero so that we're not facing this problem with people who should be locked up being mistakenly released. And we need to get to the bottom of why and how these mistaken releases have happened.
But it keeps happening. It keeps happening with regularity. And the point I think we would like to... The point I think that our viewers feel very concerned and alarmed about the fact that this just happens to be squeezed out of people like David Lammy when they're interviewed by journalists. Why isn't this routinely announced to the public? If people are wandering around their communities and they just strolled out of a nick, if a sex offender's on the loose, surely the public has a duty to be told immediately with a full description of who they are and what they're wanted for, not for it to be in-called out of them by journalists.
Well, I think there should be transparency, but you just referred to sex offenders, Martin, and the two, as I understand it, who've the latest been mistakenly released are not sex offenders and they're not violent criminals. Nevertheless, any mistaken release is wrong. Now, my understanding is that the numbers are coming down, but they need to be driven down to zero. But it is undoubtedly the case that in our prison service, in our courts, in our criminal justice system, we have a crisis that's been driven by massive cuts and underfunding under the last Conservative government. I gave you that quote at the beginning. 295 courts and tribunals closed under the last Tory government. Right. You can't deliver effective justice with that scale of cuts.
OK, Bill Bramwell, my point is just this. I just don't know how long you can keep blaming the Conservatives for everything before the public simply stop listening to what the Labour Party is saying. Bill, you've really got to look in the mirror and grow a pair and take this and take responsibility for the budget, for the disasters they're having. Stop blaming the Tories.
I'm looking in the mirror, Martin, but we had public realm, public services, the public sector that was massively cut back over the 14 Tory years. And the idea that you're going to put all of that right within 18 months is simply not credible, and your viewers wouldn't believe it's credible to fill those holes from those cuts in 18 months. It needs to improve. The investment needs to go in, but it will take time. And the measures that have been announced today around jury trials are a means of speeding up justice and ensuring that the victims of crime who are waiting 4 or 5 years for a trial to come to court, that can be done quicker.
All right, Bill Rammer, we have to leave it there. Thanks for your company on the show. I really do mean that. Thank you very much. Now back to the studio. A Reform Christmas event in Croydon has been cancelled following a campaign by the left-wing group Stand Up to Racism. Now, the fundraiser was due to take place on Thursday, but now Nigel Farage's party say it's too late to find an alternative venue. And GB News has contacted Stand Up to Racism and the Grand Sapphire Hotel. We have not yet received a response from either to tell the story. I'm now joined, of course, by Richard Tice from Reform UK. Richard Tice, Stand Up to Racism here have hounded Reform out of town.
Well, what they've done actually is they and another group have bullied the owner of this venue and essentially forced him to renege on a signed contract with Reform. Well over 200 tickets were sold, well over £20,000 of revenues had been contracted and entered into, and the venue have just unilaterally cancelled this. The security said there was no issues. The police said there were no issues, and so this is just appalling. It's an attack on free speech. It's the thin end of the wedge unless we put a marker down, and that marker is we will sue this venue owner and any other venue owner that basically reneges on a signed contract. This is an absolute outrage, and people have to realise that this is not North Korea, and democracy requires debate and discussion, and political parties are allowed to have Christmas parties. Why not? So we're outraged by this, absolutely outraged, with just 3 days' notice. Maybe it's desperate actions by desperate people in a desperate position because we're leading in 150 plus national polls.
So your message today, this is the kind of cancel culture that Reform UK, before the Brexit Party, UKIP has faced for many, many years. But you're drawing a line in the sand today, and that is if a venue owner who you have a signed contract with, an agreement, a legally binding deal, if they're going to bow down to left-wing agitprops, agitators, anti-racist, call them what you like, you're going to go for the venue owner.
A contract is a contract.
This is on you. You're going to sue them.
And the point is that it was perfectly safe and no issues at all. But essentially the venue owner allowed himself to be bullied into this, and actually people have some courage and stand up for our democracy.
Why go after the venue owner? We don't know the full details. We haven't heard yet from all sides. But why go after the venue owner? Why not go after the people who you say are pressuring him?
Because we've got a contract with the venue owner, and it's the venue owner that basically has bottled it and allowed himself to be bullied when the police said no problem at all. Our own security said no problem at all, and it's just it's simply unacceptable. People have to understand that. We're just not going to tolerate the sort of prevention of normal democratic functions. I mean, where does it end?
Just want to repeat that we have contacted both Stand Up to Racism and the Grand Sapphire Hotel. That's where this event was due to take place. But we've not received a response from either of them yet, particularly that venue. We should give them a fair right to reply. If we hear from them, of course, we will read out the same. But Richard Tice, you're saying no more cancel culture. You're going to hit the venues where it hurts, and that's in their wallets.
None of us, from whatever political views you have, we believe in a democracy, in debate, free speech, and occasionally the right to have a bit of a party. It's not too much to ask. I mean, it is Christmas, for heaven's sake. So we're just not going to tolerate, and nor should anybody else tolerate it, frankly.
Chris.
Richard Tice, we've been talking in the show about the Lord Hermer criticism of your boss, Nigel Farage. Is that fair enough? So some commentators saying he shouldn't be out there being political, but surely he's a politician appointed by Keir Starmer. It's all just, it's what happens in politics.
Well, going back to the whole point about justice, hearing from David Lammy about, justice, what about the old concept of innocent until proven guilty? All you've got here is a bunch of ridiculous allegations from people who were children 49 years ago. They've suddenly had this sort of master recurrence of exactly what was said at what moment By whom? To whom? They didn't complain 3 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Oh no, just because Nigel might be the next Prime Minister, these are people with a serious political axe to grind who've made these allegations, and now you've got our own Attorney General who's supposed to rise above the political fray, descending into the gutter. The man should be ashamed of himself.
The Guardian says it's got 20 witnesses who saw it or had things said to him. Nigel Farage says it's all not true. All 20 people.
It's all twaddle and nonsense.
All 20 people are lying.
Most of whom have not been named, and it's the Guardian. I mean, it's, you know, and the Guardian don't want Nigel to be Prime Minister. Nor does the people who have been named. They've got serious political bias.
We don't know that.
We do know that. We absolutely do know that. And I would just remind people that the allegations of anti-Semitism, it's Reform UK who've stood up against anti-Semitism more than anybody. You know, we were the ones who called for the pro-Palestine marches to be banned 5 days after October the 7th, 2023, because we knew what would happen. They would lead to incitement, to hatred, and to anti-Semitism. So the idea suggested by some of these people is frankly outrageous.
I mean, things are said as children, and of course Nigel Farage is now 60. He can't remember what happened 50 years ago. Many of us
exactly.
can't.
And therefore,
so why is he
those
denying it so firmly? Why
because nor can those children who are making those other individuals 49 years old.
They feel very upset.
You've just admitted it. If Nigel can't recall, how can those people suddenly recall when they couldn't recall it 3 or 6 years ago?
They feel very upset by what he said.
Isn't it? What a coincidence. 49 years later, they've suddenly recalled everything. Absolute clear as day. What a load of twaddle. No one's buying it. Do you know what? And the proof's in the pudding. We're winning by-elections week in, week out in places like Sunderland.
But you welcome the scrutiny. That's fine. You welcome the scrutiny. People looking into his past,
we've got nothing to be afraid of. I tell you who's got something to be afraid of. That's the Labour Party, and they're kowtowing to the Chinese communist regime. That's what we need a national inquiry about.
Richard Tice, can I quickly get your opinion on David Lammy? On the day he's cancelling jury trials, he also waded in on a radio station today on this precise point, saying that Nigel Farage should do the right thing and apologise over these allegations from his school board.
The right thing is to call out this nonsense for what it is. It's twaddle and no one's buying it. And the good old British voters, they're voting reform week in, week out. That's the proof of the pudding.
Richard Tice, thank you very much for joining us today in the studio on GB News. Thank you very much. And thank you as well, Chris Hope. Superb stuff. Now, still to come, are we getting more reaction as David Lammy's been nicknamed Lammy Dodger after the Deputy PM performed what's called a blatant U-turn on jury trials. This is GB News. 5 months on the bounce, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It's 5:29. I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News. Now, David Lammy has been nicknamed today Lammy Dodger after the Deputy PM performed a blatant U-turn, people are saying, on jury trials. Well, today, the Justice Secretary banned jury trials for all but the most serious of cases. And the Justice Secretary made the announcement in the Commons earlier today.
First, I will create new Swift courts within the Crown Court with a judge alone deciding verdicts in triable either way cases with a likely sentence of 3 years or less, as Sir Brian recommends. Sir Brian estimates that they will deliver justice at least 20% faster than jury trials.
Well, I'm delighted now to be joined in the studio in Westminster by the former Solicitor General, and that's Robert Court. Robert, pleasure to have your company. Are you concerned about today's developments?
I'm deeply concerned. I mean, it's something that we've seen a U-turn in terms of the level of sentence that will be subject to this, but it's only half a U-turn. It's not the sort of U-turn we need, which is to drop this idea altogether. It really is an attack on liberty. It is very often we hear these things in politics about this being a seminal moment. This really is. This is one of those moments that goes down in the history books, the removal of right to trial by jury from UK citizens. It's wrong for a number of reasons, but for a start, it's an attack on liberty. That should concern anybody, that the right to be judged by your peers is being removed. But even worse than that, it simply won't work because juries aren't the problem here.
What do you think is the problem?
Well, there's a number of different things that's behind it. If I had to put my finger on any one of them, it would probably be the amount of the fact that from those going into the criminal bar, it's increasingly challenging to do that from a financial perspective. So what you're going to have to do is to have some really difficult decisions about prioritisation, because to govern is to choose. Now, we've seen a government that has decided to go on a massive borrowing and taxation spree only last week to fund benefits. That was a political choice they took, and it was a choice to pacify their backbenchers. What they really should have been doing is to have been looking at the justice system and looking at how you can get cases through more quickly. Because the thing is this, if you don't have any lawyers to do the trial, and that's the case in many of these cases, if there isn't a prosecutor to do the trial, it doesn't make any difference whether it's a judge hearing it or a judge and two magistrates or a jury, you still can't have the trial. So it's the wrong target, and so it simply won't work. But here's the really concerning thing, that the only way you can justify it is by saying that a judge with magistrates will convict people more quickly, get the cases through more quickly. Well, that is of huge concern for anybody who cares about liberty. Because the whole point about juries is they are your peers, they think about things, and look, I've seen them in operation for years in the bar. They pretty much always get it right.
Isn't it funny how 5 years ago David Lammy made the precise point you're just making, particularly in the Lammy report. He talks about ethnic minorities not getting a fair crack of the whip by the barristers, by the magistrates, by the QCs as they were then, because they couldn't possibly understand the background, the circumstances of that individual's life. And we can all agree that a more balanced panel will give potentially a more balanced outcome. So why has there been this sudden U-turn?
Oh, well, it's the sudden thing when people sometimes get into office, isn't it? That their principles suddenly disappear. And who would have thought I'd be saying that David Lammy was right? But David Lammy was right when he said those things. He's wrong now. And he's done that because, in reality, he's unable to get the money out of Treasury, which would mean that he's able to put the money into the justice system, which is what he should be doing. So when he was standing up for juries, I support him 100%, but not now.
We had Bill Rammell on the show a moment ago, echoing what many Labour people have said since the very beginning about basically everything. They're blaming the Conservatives for underinvestment, for inheritance of a broken legal system. But you make the point, I think compellingly, you can make the choice rather than investing 15 billion quid in benefits, rather than giving 30 billion quid to the Chagos Islands, you could have put billions into a broken justice system, own it and sort it.
That's exactly right. And Chagos, of course, is the staring example that makes you realise how appalling this decision is. You know, we can all accept, and being totally fair, you know, over the course of many years, the justice system hasn't had the priority that it needs, but it really does need it now. And they're the people in government now. They're the ones holding the purse strings now. They can take the decisions. As you say, they took the decision to put the Chagos Islands deal through, manifestly against the UK's interests at huge cost. They're the ones who've gone on the spree at the budget to fund benefits, borrowing, increase taxation. That could have gone on justice.
Spectacular. So thanks for your time. Robert Courts, former Solicitor General, thank you for joining us today in the studio in Westminster. A pleasure to have your company. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, still to come. Parents at a Kent school are livid after a team of bearded, older asylum seekers, some were even smoking ciggies, they were bussed in to play football against a bunch of 15-year-olds in a football match. Was that safe? But first, here's your traffic and your travel update.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. There is congestion on the M25 clockwise between junction 9 and 10 in Surrey, causing delays of an hour and a half. Motorists should proceed with caution at junction 1 of the M876 southbound due to a road traffic collision. Congestion affects the westbound M4 at junction 32 Corryton. Southbound on the A1M between junction 41 and 40 in Wakefield, expect 10 minutes of delay. And on the trains, Thameslink faces major disruptions between London St Pancras International and London Bridge, as well as between Haywards Heath and Brighton. Avanti West Coast services are disrupted between London Euston and Watford Junction. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The Justice Secretary has confirmed a major overhaul of jury trials, saying some cases carrying sentences of 3 years or less will now be decided by a judge alone, not a jury. The Justice Secretary has also revealed that a dozen prisoners have been mistakenly released from jail in the past month, and 2 are still on the run. David Lammy says the pair at large are not violent or sexual offenders, but won't give further details while police prepare arrests. A long-awaited report says 12 ex-police officers would have faced gross misconduct charges over the Hillsborough disaster, but none can be disciplined because they'd already retired back in 2012. And a stark warning today from the OECD, which says tax rises and spending cuts will drag on the UK economy for the next 2 years, slowing growth and keeping inflation among the highest in the G7. And those are the latest headlines for now. More in half an hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've seen scattered showers across the south and the west today, and they'll make a little bit further northeastern progress over the next few hours, interspersed by clear spells. And it remains breezy with low pressure sitting to the northwest of the country and this southwesterly airflow. That's what's pushing the showers from the south into the Midlands, parts of eastern England, as well as much of northern England and Scotland through the evening. After around midnight, I think the showers will once again become restricted to southern and western coasts. Clear spells developing inland, still some patchy cloud, but where we do get those clear spells, temperatures will fall away. It won't be freezing first thing. Temperatures typically around 3 to 5 Celsius, but in 1 or 2 sheltered spots across eastern Scotland and northeast England, we will see a touch of frost and some mist and fog patches around first thing across the Midlands, southeast England, for example. Still some showers along the south coast, but more especially into Wales, western parts of Northern Ireland, northwest England, and western and northwest Scotland. In fact, some more persistent rain, I suspect, through northwest Scotland during the morning. A stark contrast to the sunny skies that we'll see across eastern Scotland and elsewhere through central and eastern England. So a mixed bag for Wednesday. Still some showers around, and this time the focus for showers will be across Scotland, northern England, West Wales. A few showers into the south, but not as many as Tuesday. And in between, well, certainly through the Midlands, eastern England, decent sunny spells, 8 to 11 Celsius. The breeze picks up in the west and it turns cloudy in Northern Ireland as we end the day. ahead of this band of rain, which will push some wet weather into Northern Ireland through the evening, and then that reaches western fringes of Britain during the night. But it clears first thing Thursday to a showery setup for Friday and the weekend.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 5:39. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, parents at a Kent school were left livid after a team of reportedly bearded and much older asylum seekers, some of whom were smoking ciggies, were brought in to play a football match against a group of 15-year-old lads, with one furious parent expressing their safety concerns to GB News. Now, this was organised by reform-run Kent County Council. Have they also finally gone woke? Let's find out. I'm joined now by Reform UK's leader of Kent County Council, Lyndon Camcaran. Lyndon, welcome to the show. I've got to say, when I saw this story, it was at Y School near Ashford, a bunch of asylum seekers ferried in. Some of the kids didn't even know about it. The parents didn't know about it. Imagine their shock when a bunch of bearded adults got off, smoking cigarettes to play football against the lads. And I put it to you, this is precisely the kind of thing that Reform UK said they'd stamp out.
Absolutely, Martin. Well, good evening. I haven't seen any photographs or footage of this, if it does exist. I've literally just got out of the car and got in the door, so I've not actually caught up to speed on this story. What I can tell you categorically is that Kent County Council under Reform UK is definitely not a woke zone. I can say that. The problem we have with unaccompanied asylum-seeking children is that we are obliged under the law to treat them exactly the same as we treat all of our children in care. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means we have to take them on days out. We have to take them to football matches, to sporting activities. In short, we have to treat them as a corporate parent, because that is what the law forces us to do. But I do take your point. The age verification process is weak as hell. It's the kind of thing that I, as leader of Kent County Council, have been railing against since day one. Our hands are sadly tied in many directions by the Home Office, but it is the kind of thing that I will keep kicking up a fuss about. On that, you have my absolute word.
Well, one of the parents I spoke to directly told me this. Who were these people? If they're undocumented adults, how do we know if they're safe around children? Who organised this to happen? Why would it happen? And where else are these adults? I mean, apparently it was videoed, but the school won't give us the video, perhaps for understandable reasons. But the parents told me directly that these lads were much, much bigger. They had beards. They were smoking fags before the game. I mean, it's a basic safeguarding failure, is it not, to allow adults to play football against schoolboys?
It's not a safeguarding failure in the fact that Kent County Council staff were accompanying those asylum-seeking children, and we are obliged to call them children under the law. They were accompanying them at every point. So at no point were those the people who came, the children who came to play football against the school children, at no point were they left alone. Safeguarding is taken very seriously. But there are a number of points here that are not good. Now, the Home Office conducts age verification when these unaccompanied asylum-seeking children turn up in the small boats on our shores here in Kent. Now, the Home Office line is that the Home Office robustly considers any differences between a child's claimed age and their and the information they provide on arrival is not great, because if a child turns up and says they are 12 years old but they've got a beard and they look a lot older, there is not enough checks and balances going on by the Home Office. Now, they are placed into the care of Kent County Council because that is the law. If once they're under our council looks at, they look a little bit older than the age they claim they are, they will then conduct their own series of checks. But you're absolutely right. The system is skewed against us, and it is skewed in favour of the unaccompanied asylum-seeking child. Now, what's happened in the County Council have challenged children and said, we don't think you're the age you claim to be. If it gets to court and the judge finds in favour of the child, Kent County Council can face a bill of up to £100,000. Clearly, in the past, that has deterred Kent
Okay.
County
Lyndon,
Council rigorous in these age checks.
Lyndon, you have a bit of a dodgy internet connection, so I think people are like just getting a bit of what you're saying. But let me just put this to you. If there was some justice, by the way, the 15-year-old school lads thrashed Asylum FC 6-1, so at least they showed them the ropes when it came to, you know, about the actual sport itself. But I want to ask you a blunt question. No doubt people in Kent voted for Reform UK to stop the nonsense of asylum seekers playing against schoolboys of football. This is the sort of nonsense we'd expect from, I don't know, a Green council, a Liberal Democrat council. People might be asking the question, Lyndon, they voted for you to stop this, and if you can't, what's the point?
Only central government can stop this nonsense. This is why in Reform UK, we have to push as hard as we can so that when we are next allowed to vote for our next government, you get a Reform government. Because as I've explained, it is the Home Office that sets these parameters. It is the Home Office that refuses to do X-ray scans on these children's wrists, to look at the size of their bone structure, because that is quite a good way of determining age. You might remember a court case that went through about 10 or so years ago, prevented from doing dental X-rays to ascertain how old a child was. This is complete nonsense, but I'm afraid it's one of those things that falls outside the remit of Kent County Council, and it is a home decision. That
all right.
All I can do is keep writing to the Home Secretary and keep making a big noise about it, which I am doing, and I will continue to do.
All right, Lyndon Karen had to blow the final whistle on that. And again, thanks for joining us on the show. That's the leader of Kent County Council there for Reform UK, Lyndon Karen. Now, spokesperson for the Y School told GB News this. Following an approach from Kent County Council in October, our Year 11 football team played against a team of Year 12 unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. As with any other game our team plays, the match was fully staffed and enjoyed by those who played it. No parents complained to the school following the match, and as far as we were concerned, it was a positive experience with our students playing exceptionally well. And to repeat, the local lads hammered the asylum seekers 6-1. Now, still to come, Rushmore Council will have a vote on whether they should remove 700 St George's and Union flags from the borough. A furious patriot joins me next, but first, here's the forecast for some of your top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're planning on escaping the rain this week, well, unfortunately, there's still some rain affecting the parts of the Mediterranean. High pressure, though, in the Canaries, bringing plenty of dry weather to Madeira, 17 degrees here. Plenty of dry weather also across Spain and Portugal, as well as southern areas of France. However, this wet weather is still moving into parts of Greece, bringing some showers to Santorini through the rest of this week. Looking elsewhere, it does look drier and warmer by the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
But this is story. It's one of these stories. I love these flags, don't you? Doesn't everybody love our flag? Isn't it a wonderful, bright, brilliant, colourful representation of this wonderful, most of the time, country we live in? Or not? Certainly not in Scarborough, evidently, because a Scarborough businessman says he has been left disgusted after being fined more than £2,300 for erecting England and Union flags in North Yorkshire. William Haylett used his cherry-picking, you can see on your screen there, his cherry-picking vans, which are normally used for high-level property maintenance, to string up flags across the town, along with tying England and Union flags to lampposts across Filey and Whitby. Sounds great to me. Or is it? We've seen this pretty much all summer, haven't we, where councils have taken down flags. These flags, these lovely, bright, colourful ones, but many councils have left flags of other countries up, in particular the Palestine one.
You know, our town's just been down and depressed for, you know, a couple of years now, and it's upsetting to see, you know, local people, you know, struggling and all that lot, and just down and depressed.
What reaction have you got from the local community, from people living where you've been putting your flags up?
Oh, it's just absolutely, everyone's just, they're just giving up, do you know what I mean? Seriously giving up. And what it is, you know, I've got to root, I've been out every night, you know, digging deep into root at Cuney, and it's just like we've been failed through every system going, and now we've just had enough, man, do you know what I mean? It's upsetting, you know, it makes me, makes me really upset.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
It's 10 to 6. Now, this Thursday, Rushmore Borough Council is to debate a motion on whether 700 Union flags and St George's flag should be removed from the area. Well, let's now speak with the Rushmore resident who's been putting some of those flags up. It's Jez Stocking. Jez, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. So the council is due to vote on Thursday to take down 700 flags that you put up. Why?
Well, we don't know why. I think the main council, which is called Councillor Card, who's put this motion, just said these flags are divisive. Well, the only divisive words we've heard is from him, or very white liberals that seem to be in Rushmore area. I mean, on the streets when we're putting these flags up, most of the people are congratulating us, beeping their car horns. And to be honest with you, most of the people that are congratulating us on the streets are actually the ethnics that live in the area. They seem to love them. And one Indian man that came out wanted a picture taken with us, putting the flags up. So I don't know where he gets his divisiveness from. He's probably just listening to people that are, you know, liberal and very lefty.
And Jez Stocking, it's worth pointing out, of course, Rushmore Council within the area is Aldershot. Of course, this is Britain's garrison town. This is the whole point. It's that the heart and the home, the beating pulse of the British Army. And I put it to you, 700 flags don't offend anybody who's ever been in the armed forces. In fact, I understand people that are helping you put the flags up are veterans themselves.
Yeah, 3 veterans are helping us. They absolutely love it. They think it's probably about time we put the flags up. We every time we go out as a team, we have a veteran on each sort of team just to make sure we're hanging the flags the right way, because when it's blowing a bit, we're not quite sure. But we've got 700 flags all up the right way. We go out and maintain any, because obviously trees grow, bushes grow, they get caught in the bushes. We go and maintain them. We promised the council when we started this flag campaign that we would look after our flags and maintain them. And actually, if you drive through Rushmore, it just looks beautiful. flags fluttering in the breeze. I mean, on a wet day, they are clinging to the lamppost, but they very quickly dry out. And the response from local residents is phenomenal. One fella...
All right, Jez Stocking, we have to leave it there, but we will be keeping a close eye on that vote and we're reporting it on Friday. Jez, thanks very much for joining us. Up next is Jubes & Co, the queen of primetime debate. Jubes, what's on your menu?
Thank you very much for that, Martin. Great programme, as always, coming up in a second. So much that we need to discuss, ladies and gents. Of course, I want to look at this story in Glasgow. Almost 1 in 3 school children don't speak English as a first language. Many people saying that that will impact education. But who voted for this demographic change? See you in a minute.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Still some showers overnight in places, but clear spells in between the downpours, and as the night wears on, the showers will mostly be restricted to southern and western coast because low pressure to the northwest of the UK maintains a brisk southwesterly wind. That does help to push some showers into the Midlands, eastern England, northern England, parts of Scotland during the first part of the night. But later on, I think many of these showers will remain around coasts in the south and the west, clear spells inland. And where we get those clear spells and some shelter from the breeze, northeast England, eastern Scotland, touch of frost possible. But for most, it's frost-free because temperatures will be around 3 to 5 Celsius first thing. A fresh start to the day then, but not freezing cold, and there'll be plenty of bright weather through Orkney, Caithness, Sutherland, Aberdeenshire, for example. A big contrast compared with western Scotland, where a lot of showers will be arriving at this time, even longer spells of rain. And North Wales, likewise prone to quite a number of showers. But South Wales, the odd shower, South England, the odd shower as well, interspersed by sunny spells. And some decent sunshine through the Midlands, East Anglia, Eastern England and Eastern Scotland during the morning and into the afternoon. It does turn cloudier towards the west, and it's in the west where we'll see most of the showers during the second half of the day. Temperatures of 8 to 11 Celsius, similar to Tuesday's numbers, but it's going to feel a bit cooler as the wind picks up later on. That wind driving an area of rain in from the west, and that rain clearing first thing Thursday. It clears